Chapter 1337. When Ji Tianxing saw that Shui Ruoyu was angry, he immediately comforted her and pleaded for leniency for Shi Zhongjian. After all, as a disciple of the sect, Shi Zhongjian actually dared to talk about the relationship between the sect master and left protector in private. This was a crime of offending one's superior. If it was dealt with according to the sect rules, Shi Zhongjian would have to be confined for 3 to 5 years or be severely beaten up. Luckily, Shui Ruoyu loved and valued this junior brother, Ji Tianxing, very much. After hearing his words of persuasion, Shui Ruoyu's anger dissipated. She inputted a command into the communication jade slip and sent it out. After sending the communication jade letter, she then said to Ji Tianxing, "All right, I have already given the order, they will naturally know how to deal with it. Tianxing, if you have anything to prepare, prepare it now. I will help you refine the divine cauldron later." Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and nodded his head. "I don't have anything to prepare, let us begin now." Shui Ruoyu nodded her head and flew to the center of the cave, landing on the wide sacrificial altar. Ji Tianxing also followed closely behind and landed beside her. The two of them stood on the sacrificial altar and were in the midst of the turbulent flowing fire as they looked at the heavenly dipper god fire cauldron that was 10 steps away. Shui Ruoyu pointed at the divine cauldron and explained to Ji Tianxing, "Tianxing, the divine cauldron has been stored here for many years and has been absorbing the heavenly wind and flowing fire. Its power has already reached its peak. The divine cauldron doesn't look big, but it has a different world and profound principles. The heavenly wind and flowing fire stored in it is enough to turn 10,000 miles of land into a sea of magma. When you refine the divine cauldron, you must not be anxious. More haste, less speed. I will teach you the art of spring wind transforming rain. First, communicate with the heavenly wind and flowing fire in the divine cauldron. After you are compatible with it, you can begin to refine the divine cauldron." Shui Ruoyu was like a kind old granny and also like Ji Tianxing's elder. She patiently explained the key to refining the divine cauldron with a very kind attitude. Ji Tianxing also didn't understand why Shui Ruoyu was so kind to him. It was as though the two of them had known each other for many years and were deeply fated. But he didn't think too much about it. He suppressed these distracting thoughts at the bottom of his heart and listened intently. An hour later, Shui Ruoyu imparted the spring wind and rain secret technique to him. He sat on the altar and cultivated. It took him a full 4 hours to master the secret technique. Then he began to use the spring wind and rain secret technique, injecting his soul and mana into the divine cauldron to communicate with the heavenly wind and flowing fire in the divine cauldron. In the beginning, the divine cauldron rejected his magic power and divine soul and did not allow him to get close at all. Furthermore, the divine cauldron even released a powerful divine power that pushed him back 100 feet, almost causing him to fall off the altar. Although an ancient and powerful divine artifact like the heavenly dipper god fire cauldron had yet to give birth to an artifact soul, it still possessed sufficient intelligence and intelligence. This was not an inanimate object, but a divine artifact with emotions. Refining it was definitely not an easy task. Later on, with Shui Ruoyu's help, Ji Tianxing's mana and soul gradually came into contact with the divine cauldron. Only then did he truly feel how terrifying the power of the heavenly dipper god fire cauldron was. Even the sword of burial of heaven, which had now reached the level of a half-step divine artifact, could not be compared to the divine cauldron. The power of the divine cauldron was at least 5 times stronger than the sword of burial of heaven. While Ji Tianxing was shocked, he also looked forward to refining the heavenly dipper god fire cauldron as soon as possible. If he could control such a divine artifact, his combat power would increase by several times. At that time, he would be able to dominate the world and sweep everything before him. As time passed, 8 hours passed very quickly. Ji Tianxing used a full 8 hours before the divine cauldron accepted his mana and soul power. He also gradually understood the internal structure of the divine cauldron. He was extremely shocked by the precision and profoundness of the divine cauldron's array formation. Next, his soul and mana began to communicate with the heavenly wind and flowing fire in the divine cauldron. Inside the divine cauldron, There was a ball of silvery white light that wrapped around a ball of dark red liquid. That silvery white light was the heavenly wind, and the dark red liquid was the geocentric flowing fire. Although the two did not look big, in reality, they were condensed 10,000 times, and their power was condensed to the limit. Only a little heavenly wind, a drop of flowing fire, could destroy 100 miles of heaven and earth. Ji Tianxing carefully controlled his soul and mana, gradually coming into contact with the heavenly wind and flowing fire, repeatedly communicating and matching with it. Xue Ruoyu stood at the side, paying attention to his and the divine cauldron's movements, afraid that an accident would happen. The two of them were focused and forgot the passage of time. At the same time, on the peak of Sunless Peak, the sun was setting. More than 10 figures were gathered in the sect's conference hall at the peak of the mountain. There were men and women among these people, and most of them were middle-aged or elderly. They were all dressed luxuriously and had extraordinary auras. The main seat in the north was Sect Master Xue Ruoyu's throne. It had always been empty. The second elder and two white-haired elders stood on the left side of the hall. The right guardian and the 4 elders stood on the right side of the hall. There was also a young disciple in a white robe who was standing in the middle of the hall with a face full of guilt. He looked pitiful with his head lowered, as if admitting his fault. Without a doubt, this young disciple was Shi Zhongjian. Other than him, the most eye-catching person in the entire hall was the old drunkard who was dressed in rags and had a pitch-black face. The old drunkard sat in the clean and tidy hall, his back leaning against a red pillar with gold paint. He looked miserable and on the verge of death, which made people sympathize with him. The atmosphere in the hall was very oppressive and solemn, and all the elders had ugly expressions. The white-haired elder on the left glanced at the old drunkard, and his gaze landed on Shi Zhongjian. He reprimanded in a dignified voice, "Shi Zhongjian, look at what you have done. What kind of friend have you made? He's just a kid with an unknown background, and he's obviously up to no good. You actually brought him to our sect? Have you forgotten the sect rules? If you did not invite a wolf into the house, how would the left guardian be injured like this?" Another white-haired elder also reprimanded, "Shi Zhongjian, it's okay if you are muddle-headed, but you shouldn't be so muddle-headed. That kid is powerful and has evil intentions. Who knows what kind of trouble he will cause by barging into the forbidden area. If the sect leader blames you, you will be a sinner of our sect." Seeing the 2 elders' pained expressions, the second elder hurriedly stood up and consoled them, "Elders, calm down first, don't be so nervous. I have seen Ji Tianxing before, and in my opinion, Ji Tianxing does not look like a sinister and despicable person. Perhaps he has other secrets? Moreover, Zhongjian is still young and seldom goes out to explore. His knowledge and experience are shallow, and his temperament is a little simple. Even if Ji Tianxing wants to harm our sect, Zhongjian was used by the villain. He did not do it on purpose." The 2 white-haired elders became even angrier when they heard her words. "Second elder, other than this matter, you can't escape punishment either. You have seen that kid before, so why didn't you guard against him?" Chapter 1338. The 2 white-haired old men were both furious, scolding Shi Zhongjian with harsh voices and faces. Even if the second elder tried to defend Shi Zhongjian, it would be useless. The other elders were also worried and couldn't help but reprimand Shi Zhongjian. Shi Zhongjian's situation became more and more awkward. He lowered his head even more and looked like he was going to admit his mistake and accept his punishment. Seeing this, the elders didn't say anything else. One of the white-haired elders stared at Shi Zhongjian with sharp eyes and said in a deep voice, "Shi Zhongjian, the disaster has already happened. Do you admit your crime?" Shi Zhongjian just lowered his head and didn't say anything. The white-haired elder frowned and said again, "As a disciple of the sect, you have to admit your mistake. As long as you admit your mistake and reflect on it, the sect can give you a lighter punishment." The elders at the side all hurriedly signaled Shi Zhongjian with their eyes, indicating for him to quickly admit his guilt. Even Elder Lian Air sent a sound transmission to Shi Zhongjian, "Zhongjian, since things have already come to this, you don't have to insist anymore. Hurry up and admit your mistake to the elders. Everyone is just going through the motions." Master will plead on your behalf and you won't be severely punished. Hearing this, Shi Zhongjin finally raised his head. He looked at the second elder with firm eyes and said calmly in front of everyone, "Elders, you are right. This disciple is still young and lacks experience. My temperament is also too simple. This disciple will work hard to improve in the future. However, this disciple will not admit his mistake. This disciple also doesn't believe that Big Brother Tianxing is that kind of person. He is the #1 prodigy of the continent. His status is noble and his talent is unparalleled. Why would he scheme against our hidden god sect? Why would he come all the way here to harm our sect? In short, this disciple will not believe it before the truth comes to light." Shi Zhongjin's eyes and tone were very firm. Even in the face of the elders reprimanding, he didn't back down. But before he could finish speaking, the expressions of all the elders changed, and they all revealed looks of disappointment. The 2 white-haired elders were so angry that their faces turned ashen. They looked like they were about to blow their beards and stare. "Ridiculous! You traitorous disciple is so stubborn. It's hopeless. Second elder, look at the good disciple you've taught. He's already possessed to such an extent. Since Shi Zhongjin refuses to plead guilty, I ask the elders to sentence him according to the laws of our sect and let him reflect on his mistakes." Everyone looked pained and hateful, and they immediately wanted to convict Shi Zhongjin. The second elder was suddenly full of anxiety. She quickly stepped forward and stood in front of Shi Zhongjin. She said to the other elders, "Elders, it's not that I'm partial to my disciple, but there are still some secrets in this matter. Please don't be impatient." The great elder had already sent a message to the sect leader to ask about the specific situation. After the great elder received the headmaster's reply, the truth of this matter would come to light. At that time, it wouldn't be too late to convict Shi Zhongjin. If Shi Zhongjin is really guilty, as his master, I can't absolve myself from the blame. When the time comes, I will also receive punishment. The second elder's tone was resolute and decisive. It was very firm and contained an unquestionable tone. When the elders saw her reaction, they couldn't continue to be overbearing. They could only cease their banners and cease their drums as they whispered softly, "Indeed, she's worthy of being the most protective elder in our sect." AI. Second elder spared no effort to protect this kid. "Shi Zhongjin, Shi Zhongjin, how can you be worthy of your master's nurturing and protection?" "All right, let's do as the second elder said. Everyone wait for a moment." Everyone was silent and the main hall quickly quietened down. Not long after, a tall and sturdy white-haired old man stepped into the main hall with vigorous steps. His complexion was rosy and his eyes were bright. He was holding a jade slip in his hands and his expression was filled with joy. When the people in the main hall saw that this person had arrived, they instantly revealed an expectant expression and hurriedly went up to welcome him. "Great Elder, you're finally back." "Great Elder, has the sect leader replied to the news? What's the result? Has that kid been sentenced to death by the sect leader?" The elders turned their heads to look at the great elder, their eyes filled with anticipation. Shi Zhongjin also stared at the great elder. His fists were secretly clenched in his sleeves. He was obviously nervous and worried. The great elder walked to the middle of the main hall and stood still. He looked around and then raised his hand to signal for everyone to quiet down. "Everyone, please calm down. There's no need to be anxious or worried. I've just received the sect leader's personal order." As he spoke, he raised the jade slip in his hand. Everyone's mood became even more anxious. They looked at the jade slip expectantly and couldn't wait to know the answer. The great elder revealed a trace of a smile and continued, "We've all misunderstood that young Master Ji. Not only is he the continent's #1 prodigy, he also has no ill intentions towards our sect. Moreover, young Master Ji has a very deep relationship with our sect leader. He's our sect's distinguished guest. Young Master Ji has indeed come to our sect for a very important matter to discuss with our sect leader. The reason why he trespassed into the forbidden area was because he had no other choice. Everyone, don't worry." Hearing the first elder's words, all the elders revealed looks of astonishment and began to whisper to each other. Xianxia also revealed a look of relief. His face was filled with a proud smile. His fists in his sleeves also slowly relaxed. I knew it. Young Master Ji is definitely not that kind of person. He's a peerless prodigy and also my savior. I've never misjudged him. He muttered to himself. His tone was filled with excitement and pride. The second elder also clearly breathed a sigh of relief. His face revealed a trace of a smile. He nodded to Xianxia, indicating that everything was fine. The two white-haired elders who were angry before were now the most embarrassed. Their faces didn't look too good. The two of them didn't dare to look at Xianxia's expression. Their eyes were somewhat evasive. At this time, the great elder continued, "In addition, I have a piece of good news to announce. Because of young Master Ji's arrival, our sect leader has ended his seclusion and will come out soon. When the time comes, our sect leader will gather all the elders and deacons to publicly announce something. Although I don't know what it is for now, it's definitely related to our sect's 1,000 years of foundation." Hearing his words, even a fool would know that this matter was definitely related to Ji Tianxing. Moreover, the elusive sect leader Shui had actually appeared because of Ji Tianxing's arrival and wanted to announce something important. This was enough to show how revered Ji Tianxing's status was. How deep was his relationship with sect leader Shui? Everyone recalled the scene of them cursing Ji Tianxing and criticizing Xianxia a moment ago. They instantly felt incomparably ashamed. The elders in the hall all revealed looks of shame. They were so embarrassed that they wanted to find a hole to hide in. Chapter 1339. Soon a day had passed. It was evening again, and the dark red setting sun shone on the hidden god sect. The elders and deacons had been waiting for an entire day, full of anticipation. Everyone gathered around the conference hall, ready to welcome the sect master out of seclusion. At the same time, everyone was discussing the important news that the sect master was about to announce. What was it? When the sun slowly set and disappeared at the end of the horizon, the world gradually became dim. At this moment, the peaceful sunless peak suddenly trembled violently. The entire sunless peak was shaking, and there was a boom 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 sound coming from underground, as if a great earthquake had occurred. The elders, deacons, and disciples on the peak were all shocked, and their expressions changed dramatically. Everyone scattered in all directions, shouting in fear, not knowing what had happened. The ground on the mountain peak kept bouncing up and down as cracks appeared one after another. The cliffs halfway up the mountain crumbled, and countless rocks fell down toward the foot of the mountain. The entire sunless peak immediately burst into an uproar. The entire sect was in chaos. Fortunately, the violent shaking only lasted for a few breaths of time before it disappeared. Sunless Peak was protected by a powerful array, so it did not suffer any substantial damage. Just as everyone was still in a state of shock, flames suddenly burst out from the ground and rushed into the sky from all directions, dyeing half the sky crimson. Countless fire pillars, each as thick as a water tank, burst out from the ground and valleys around Sunless Peak and reflected each other in the sky. For a time, the area within 1,000 miles was as red as fire, and heat waves were rolling. The elders and disciples of the Hidden God sect all looked up at the sky subconsciously, and they were a little dazed and stunned as they looked at the dazzling fire that filled the sky. Under everyone's amazed gaze, the scarlet fire that filled the sky quickly condensed into 9 huge scarlet dragons that were as large as mountains. A few resounding dragon roars rang out as the 9 crimson fire dragons circled in the sky, then burrowed back into the ground. Swish, swish, swish. A moment later, the 9 scarlet fire dragons disappeared from the ground. The flames that filled the sky also dissipated, and the world returned to darkness. Between the mountains and rivers around Sunless Peak, the scorching heat and the overflowing magma actually dissipated at an extremely fast speed. The elders and disciples of the Hidden God sect could clearly feel that the flames and heat waves between heaven and earth had completely disappeared. The mountains, rivers, and earth within 1,000 miles of the area also gradually turned from a scorching hot state to a normal icy cold state. This kind of invisible change left everyone scratching their heads, and they began to discuss with doubts. What happened just now? Tens of thousands of fire pillars rushed into the sky and converged into 9 fire dragons, circling in the air. This is a phenomenon of heaven and earth. I understand. The sect master has come out of seclusion. That's why there's such a phenomenon. It must be because the sect master has reached the great accomplishment stage. It must be the Lord Sect Master coming out of seclusion that caused this phenomenon. Someone guessed that the heaven and earth anomaly was related to Sect Master Shui and shouted excitedly. Therefore, countless disciples thought so and were full of hot blood as they cheered excitedly. The atmosphere of the entire sunless peak immediately changed from panic to wild joy. Everyone was in high spirits. The cheerful atmosphere lasted for about 15 minutes before the great elder announced in a dignified tone, "All disciples, immediately get into formation. All deacons and elders, follow this seat to the conference hall and respectfully await the sect master coming out of seclusion." The numerous disciples immediately took action. More than 100 disciples consciously lined up in the square in front of the palace. More than 20 deacons and elders entered the conference hall and stood in 2 rows, waiting for Sect Master Shui to come out of seclusion. Everyone was busy for about 15 minutes before they neatly lined up in formation. At this time, a dazzling golden light soared into the sky from the bottom of Sunless Peak. Swoosh! The sacred and dazzling golden light flew into the sky and illuminated hundreds of miles like a scorching sun. Then, the golden light slowly landed on the peak of Sunless Peak and flew into the conference hall. Whether it was the disciples in the square outside the conference hall or the elders and deacons in the conference hall, they all clearly saw 2 figures in the golden light. Therefore, more than 100 disciples outside the conference hall knelt on the ground and respectfully shouted in unison, "Welcome the sect master coming out of seclusion." The elders and deacons in the main hall also bowed and shouted in unison, "Congratulations to the great success of the divine skill, sect leader." The dazzling golden light slowly faded and 2 figures, one old and one young, appeared clearly in front of everyone. The 2 stood at the head of the conference hall. On the left was a white-haired woman, the sect master of the hidden god sect, Shui Ruoyu. Standing beside her was a handsome young man in a white robe, Ji Tianxing. Shui Ruoyu's gaze swept across the conference hall before she nodded slightly to the elders and deacons. She said in a dignified tone, "Everyone, please rise." "Thank you, sect master." The elders and deacons responded and then raised their heads to look at Shui Ruoyu and Ji Tianxing. A day ago, in the eyes of the elders, Ji Tianxing was a bastard who plotted against the hidden god sect and trespassed into the forbidden area. He was guilty of the most heinous crimes. At this very moment, Ji Tianxing was traveling together with Shui Ruoyu. Furthermore, he was standing beside her. Their relationship seemed to be very harmonious and close. The elders and deacons looked at Ji Tianxing with a look of disbelief and embarrassment. Shui Ruoyu turned and walked to the head of the conference hall. With the help of Ji Tianxing, she slowly sat on the luxurious and dignified throne. Then, she said in a dignified tone, "I have been cultivating in seclusion for dozens of years. I have been concentrating on comprehending the divine art, but I have never succeeded. Recently, Ji Tianxing came to visit me on the orders of the human race's emperor, so I took this opportunity to come out of seclusion." The elders and deacons were stunned when they heard her words. Their faces were full of astonishment and suspicion. "Sect master? Didn't you achieve great success in the divine art? You caused a heaven and earth anomaly just now." The first elder, who was the leader, couldn't help but ask Shui Ruoyu. The other elders and deacons nodded in agreement and looked at Shui Ruoyu with puzzlement. Shui Ruoyu was also stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled and explained, "How can it be so easy to comprehend a primordial soul cultivation technique? I have only been in seclusion for dozens of years. How could I have mastered the divine art? As for the heaven and earth anomaly just now, it was caused by little junior brothers successfully refining the divine cauldron." Hearing this, the elders and deacons in the hall were even more dumbfounded. Their expressions became more and more interesting. "What? The heaven and earth anomaly has nothing to do with the sect master? Little junior brother? Who is the sect master's little junior brother? Could it be young Master Ji? Oh my God! Sect master and young Master Ji have such an unimaginable relationship? Chapter 1340. Shui Ruoyu's words made everyone dumbfounded, completely unable to make heads or tails of it. Ji Tianxing just stood beside the throne with a calm expression. He didn't say anything and didn't explain anything. Shui Ruoyu looked at everyone calmly and explained in a serious tone. I know that everyone will find it hard to understand and believe, but Ji Tianxing is indeed my junior brother. This matter is very important. It involves the past thousands of years ago and the original intention and purpose of establishing our sect. It is our sect's biggest secret. Today, I have gathered everyone to reveal the secret of that year and announce an important decision in front of everyone. Shui Ruoyu paused for a moment. Her expression and aura became even more serious and dignified. All the elders and deacons also stared at her without blinking. Their hearts were filled with anticipation and urgency. 10,000 years ago, there was a shocking earthquake in the Vermilion Bird Mountain Range. Endless earth fire gushed out from the ground and covered the sky, burning tens of thousands of miles. Shui Ruoyu's voice sounded in the hall and lingered in everyone's ears. Her tone was low and solemn. Everyone was very quiet. They held their breaths and listened attentively. Following Shui Ruoyu's narration, the corresponding scenes appeared in everyone's minds. They imagined the situation at that time. After a full 7 minutes, Shui Ruoyu told everyone about the origin of the heavenly Dipper God Fire Cauldron and the origin of the Hidden God sect. Of course, she only briefly mentioned that she was a disciple of the Kenshin and had a relationship with Ji Tianxing. All the elders and deacons showed an expression of sudden realization. Everyone finally understood that there was such a shocking secret hidden under Sunless Peak. There was actually a divine artifact of the sect. No one would have thought that the Hidden God sect was a secret force under the imperial court of the human race. What was even more unexpected was that Shui Ruoyu was a disciple of the Kenshin and Ji Tianxing was the successor of the Kenshin. There was actually such a relationship between the two. In this way, even though Ji Tianxing was the youngest person in the hall, his status was second only to Shui Ruoyu. He was incomparably honorable. Many of the elders and deacons recalled the scene when they had scolded Ji Tianxing and felt ashamed, their faces burning. In particular, the two white-haired old men lowered their heads with flushed faces, not daring to look at Ji Tianxing's expression. Ji Tianxing could not guess the complicated feelings of the crowd, so he remained silent. He stood beside Shui Ruoyu, silently communicating with and nurturing the Big Dipper God Fire Cauldron. At this time, Shui Ruoyu said in a dignified tone, "Since everyone has understood the meaning of our sect's existence, I will now announce a piece of news. According to His Majesty the Monarch's order, now that the great army of the devil race is sweeping across the world, the situation in the Tianxian land is already chaotic, and our people are in imminent danger. At this critical juncture, His Majesty the Monarch has entrusted Ji Tianxing with a heavy responsibility. He has entrusted the Divine Cauldron to him so that he can wield the Divine Cauldron and protect our people. As the subjects of the Imperial Court, our sect should also step forward bravely in this critical juncture to save our people and support the human race. I hereby announce that from today onwards, the Hidden God sect will be entrusted to Ji Tianxing. We must obey his orders and assist him in fighting against the devil race. From this seat down to the disciples, servants, and odd-job workers of our sect, no one disrespects him. No one is allowed to disobey his orders." When Shui Ruoyu's dignified voice spread throughout the main hall, a formless mighty divine aura burst forth from her body and engulfed the entire hall. Everyone was stunned by this news. Their hearts were beating wildly, and their faces were filled with disbelief. However, everyone was intimidated by Shui Ruoyu's dignified aura. No one dared to show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction, let alone say the word, no. Everyone lowered their heads and bowed respectfully. They shouted, "We will obey the sect master's order." Shui Ruoyu was satisfied with everyone's reaction. She nodded with a gratified expression and added, "Of course, Junior Brother Ji is usually busy and has no time to manage the sect's affairs. The sect's affairs, big or small, will still be managed by this seat. As long as junior brother Ji has any important decisions or orders, this seat and the sect will follow them without delay. All the elders and deacons bowed again with a solemn expression and said in unison, "We will obey the order." Shui Ruoyu turned her head to look at Ji Tianxing beside her, indicating for him to say a few words. Ji Tianxing nodded and said in a calm tone, "Elders and deacons, the news that Sect Master Shui announced just now was the order of His Majesty, the Emperor, and also her intention. However, there is no need for everyone to be nervous. The Hidden God Sect will still be the Hidden God Sect. We will still stay on Sunless Peak and continue to conserve our strength. The only change is that when I lead the army to fight against the Devil Race's army, everyone will travel with me and fight side by side." His explanation was simple and easy to understand. All the elders and deacons immediately understood and their nervous mood eased a lot. After he finished speaking, Shui Ruoyu announced the end of the meeting and waved her hand to dismiss the elders and deacons. More than 20 elders and deacons left the hall in groups of 2s and 3s with complicated feelings. They discussed the matter as they walked. Only the great elder and second elder stayed behind to report the situation to Shui Ruoyu and deal with some sect affairs. Ji Tianxing also bowed and bid farewell to Shui Ruoyu. "Sect Master Shui, I have successfully refined the divine cauldron. You have also announced the news in public. My purpose for this trip has been achieved, so I will not impose on you any longer." Seeing that he was about to leave, Shui Ruoyu urged him to stay. "Little junior brother, you have just refined the divine cauldron and your situation is not completely stable yet. To ensure that nothing goes wrong, you should rest in the sect for one night. It won't be too late to leave tomorrow." The great elder and second elder also spoke in agreement and urged him to stay. "Young Master Ji, you have come in a hurry. Our sect has not yet received you properly and has been impolite. How can you leave in such a hurry?" "Yes, young Master Ji and Lord Sect Master have met. How can you not spend some time together? Moreover, if you are going to lead the sect in the future, you should take this opportunity to learn more about the sect." Unable to refuse such hospitality, Ji Tianxing could only nod and agree to stay one more night in the Hidden God Sect and leave early the next morning. Soon, the news spread throughout the Hidden God Sect. The entire Hidden God Sect knew that the white-robed youth Ji Tianxing who had just arrived the day before yesterday was actually the continent's #1 genius and the sect master's little junior brother. Moreover, after the sect master came out of seclusion, he personally announced that he would entrust the entire Hidden God Sect to him. From today onwards, the Hidden God Sect would be under his command. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. The entire Hidden God Sect was in an uproar. Everyone was indescribably shocked and felt that it was inconceivable. The most excited person was none other than Shi Zhongjian. When he first heard the news, he also did not dare to believe it. He was stunned for a long time before he reacted. When he recovered from his shock, he was so excited that he danced and laughed towards the sky. He was extremely proud of himself. Chapter 1341. For the entire night, the Hidden God Sect was bustling with noise and excitement. The elders, deacons, and disciples were still discussing what had happened and Shui Ruoyu's announcement. Originally, everyone had been living in seclusion and did not understand the situation in the outside world. They had never heard of Ji Tianxing's reputation and deeds. Now that he had suddenly become the leader of the Hidden God Sect, the process was like a legend and a myth. Everyone was shocked and curious. Countless people were discussing and inquiring about the origin of this legendary peerless prodigy. What were his glorious deeds and past? Apart from Shi Zhongjian, no one could answer. Naturally, this warm-hearted and talkative fellow was surrounded by countless disciples. They crowded around him like stars surrounding the moon as they fought to ask him about Ji Tianxing's deeds. Even the deacons and elders would pretend to pass by casually just to hear more stories and news. Because Shi Zhongjian and Ji Tianxing had known each other for a long time, they had gone on adventures and fought side by side. He was Ji Tianxing's good friend and thus became the object of admiration and envy of countless disciples. Even the deacons and elders in the sect became more and more polite to him. Shi Zhongjian looked neither arrogant nor impatient, but he knew that this was the honor and pride that Ji Tianxing had brought to him. At night, Shui Ruoyu was busy dealing with the sect's affairs. Ji Tianxing stayed in his residence to rest. He was silently nurturing and observing the divine cauldron. The Big Dipper Godfire cauldron had been refined by him and turned into a finger-sized black cauldron that was quietly sleeping in his mind. After I refined the divine cauldron swallowed the underground magma ocean completely. The magma ocean disappeared, and the temperature within a few thousand miles of Sunless Peak dropped to normal. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. I hope that the spirit vein of the Hidden God sect will not be destroyed after I take the divine cauldron away. Ji Tianxing muttered to himself, feeling a little worried. Now he had 3 divine items in his mind. In the middle was the golden divine soul sword, above it was the heaven-mending pearl, and below it was the black Big Dipper Godfire cauldron. With his half-step primordial soul realm strength and the 3 divine items, his combat strength had already reached an extremely formidable level. He only wanted to return to the central state as soon as possible and report to the emperor. Then he would understand the situation of the Devil Race army and rush to the battlefield as soon as possible to fight against the Devil Race army and experts. Although he did not know the situation at the border, he could understand that the situation on the continent was getting worse and worse. Every day that passed, the danger of the middle continent would increase by a little bit. Countless human warriors would die on the battlefields. After I report back to the Celestial Emperor, I will investigate the situation of the northern battlefield and rush over to provide support as soon as possible. With my current strength, whether it's suppressing the Devil Army or resisting a Devil Commander powerhouse, it's all very easy. When I find a suitable opportunity, I will summon Xiao Wenyin, Emperor Yi, and Sect Master Shui to assist me in killing the Devil Emperor. Then, we will be able to break the attack of the Devil Race. Ji Tianxing silently calculated in his heart for a while. After making up his mind, he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. The night passed in silence. The next morning, when the sun had just risen, he got up and left his residence. He met with Shui Ruoyu alone, brought Shui Ruoyu's reply to the emperor, and quietly left the Hidden God sect. Facing the rising sun, he rode the little black dragon and soared high in the sky, rushing as fast as lightning toward the central state. The little black dragon was focused on hurrying. He sat on the back of the black dragon, refining the heavenly Dipper Godfire cauldron. Any magic treasure required a martial artist to constantly refine it to increase the power of the magic treasure. This allowed the martial artist to communicate more smoothly with the magic treasure and use it as they wished. Of course, a divine sword like the Sword of Burial of Heaven that had an artifact soul was not included in this list. 4 days passed in the blink of an eye. The little black dragon flew non-stop for 4 days, not knowing fatigue. It was currently afternoon, and the sun was warm and genial. White clouds lazily floated in the blue sky. The little black dragon was flying in the air above a lofty and steep mountain range. On the ground stood dangerous peaks that were thousands of meters tall. The birds and monsters that lived in the mountain range were all low-level monsters. They did not dare to show themselves, let alone harass or attack the little black dragon. Everything was calm and tranquil. But in front of them, a fierce gust of wind suddenly blew over, filling the sky with black clouds that rolled over. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding several hundred li was covered in thick black clouds. The warm sunlight was blocked out, and the surrounding light turned gloomy while the temperature rapidly dropped. The little black dragon keenly sensed that there was a hint of blood and death in the air. It raised its head to look at the black clouds, then narrowed its eyes and sent a message to Ji Tianxing. "Old Ji, we've probably encountered trouble." At this time, Ji Tianxing had already sensed that danger was approaching. There was no need for the little black dragon's reminder. He had already ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. He stood with his hands held behind his back, a fierce gust of wind blowing over his face, causing his white robe and his long hair to flutter in the wind. He frowned, killing intent flashing through his eyes as his lips curled into a sneer. "I smell the aura of the demon race, and it's a demon commander at the soul refinement realm. I really didn't think that those damned demon bastards would intrude into the heart of the continent and come here." As he spoke, there was a flash of black light in his hand, and the sword of burial of heaven appeared. Gripping the sword of burial of heaven, he expressionlessly said, "Little black dragon, they've clearly come for me. Since we've encountered them, why don't you stop and greet them? It just so happens that I've only just gained control over lightning and refined the divine cauldron, so some blind demons have come to throw their lives away. How can I let down their good intentions?" The little black dragon hurriedly slowed down and stopped high in the sky. The black clouds in the sky grew thicker and thicker, crazily surging. In 10 short seconds, the boundless black clouds had sealed off an area of 100 li, forming a pitch-black domain that suppressed Ji Tianxing and the little black dragon. The little black dragon calmly hovered in the sky, calmly observing the situation, not the slightest bit worried or panicked. Ji Tianxing proudly stood on the dragon's back, expressionlessly looking forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, 3 dark red beams of light flashed through the pitch-black demonic clouds. 3 pitch-black figures 1 zhang tall stepped out of the demonic clouds and stood 1,000 zhang in front of the little black dragon. Ji Tianxing's pupils contracted as he stared at the 3 demons. They were 2 male demons and 1 female demon. The female demon and the man in black armor stood on the left and right sides respectively, looking like attendants. The leader of the group stood in the middle, a middle-aged man in dark red armor. This person's body was as sturdy as a bear's, and he had a single eye on his forehead. He had 6 arms and 4 wings on his back. His single dark red eye stared at Ji Tianxing as a cold sneer appeared on his ugly and savage face. Chapter 1342. Hearing the familiar voice of the one-eyed devil, Ji Tianxing's brows gradually relaxed, and the sneer on his face became even more pronounced. He coldly stared at the one-eyed demon and sneered, "Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, you bastard! I was going to the northern desert to kill you myself. I didn't expect you to come to me yourself. That saves me a lot of trouble." Without a doubt, the one-eyed demon with 4 wings and 6 arms was the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. There was a man and a woman beside him, who were his followers. They were both level 8 Sky Origin Stage Demon Kings. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's single eye was glowing fiercely. He shouted, "Ji Tianxing, it has been a year since we last met. You little bastard, you are still so arrogant. Could it be that you've forgotten the pain after your wounds have healed? Could it be that you've forgotten the time when you were chased by this marshal and fled like a stray dog?" Ji Tianxing was not angry. He just coldly stared at the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. In his opinion, since the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander dared to show up, he was going to die here. Why would he get mad at a man who was going to die? "Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, 1 year ago, I was no match for you. However, things are different now. Today, I will chop off your head with my own hands to avenge you." Ji Tianxing held the sword in his hand. He was emitting a powerful and overbearing aura. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander sneered and said, "You little bastard, how dare you say you can kill Ben Shui? How shameless! You probably don't know that Ben Shui spent half a year looking for you all over the land. He wants to kill you and take your Kenshin bloodline." Ji Tianxing finally realized that the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander had planned this all along. He glanced at the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander and secretly released his soul power, which spread out in all directions to see if there were other demons nearby. "Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, you are so arrogant to break into the land and search for me. You must have someone to rely on. There's no need to hide anymore. Quickly show yourself so that I can deal with all of you together." He suspected that the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander had helpers, who must be even more powerful demons. However, he didn't find any clues or traces after searching the surroundings with his soul energy, causing him to become even more vigilant in his heart. The Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander sensed that he was searching the surroundings, so he did not waste any more words with him. He immediately drew out a palm-sized, pitch-black demonic saber as his entire body surged with killing intent. "Little bastard, you're too arrogant. There's no need for that venerable one to act. Ben Shui can kill you, skin you alive, and pull out your tendons." As soon as he finished speaking, the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander held his demonic saber and roared angrily. Then, he swung his sword and unleashed a blood-red light that blotted out the sky. Thunderbolt Devil Kill. A 300-meter-long blood-red blade light appeared out of nowhere. It tore through the dark night like a thunderbolt, and instantly arrived in front of Ji Tianxing. Instantly, the pitch-black night sky within a 5-kilometer radius was illuminated by the dazzling bloody light. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's attack was fast and ruthless. He had used all of his strength as soon as he attacked, and the power of the blade light was terrifying. However, Ji Tianxing did not take it seriously at all. He took out the Sword of Burial of Heaven and slashed at the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. Swoosh! A giant white sword with purple lightning in it tore through the night sky and slashed at the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. Bam! The blood-red blade light and the white sword light clashed in the night sky with a loud thud. Instantly, the blood-red blade light exploded and shattered into pieces of blood-red light that filled the sky. The power of the white sword light did not diminish at all. It instantly hit the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, who had yet to react. Bam! As a muffled sound was heard, the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander was sent flying by the white giant sword. He let out a shrill cry. The dark red armor that he was wearing was shattered into pieces by the giant sword, turning into a pile of scrap metal. His chest was also slashed open, and a large amount of black devil blood spurted out, revealing his ghastly white bones. Even his mouth and nose were spurting out some demonic blood. He looked extremely disheveled. The two demon lords, one male and one female, were swinging their swords aggressively, trying to attack Ji Tianxing from both sides. Suddenly seeing such a scene, the two of them were stunned on the spot. Their eyes widened in shock, revealing a deep sense of fear. They had never thought that the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, who was extremely powerful in their eyes, would be so weak in front of Ji Tianxing. The two of them had only exchanged one blow, and the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander was sent flying with severe injuries. This was simply too terrifying. The two of them could not imagine how powerful Ji Tianxing was. With their abilities, what right did they have to attack Ji Tianxing? Just as the two of them were stunned, Ji Tianxing waved his left hand and shot out two blinding white sword lights. Swoosh! Swoosh! The two white sword lights that were 1,000 feet long pierced through the night sky like lightning and attacked the two of them. The two of them were instantly filled with fear, and their eyes were filled with fear and despair. They only hesitated for a moment before they turned around and ran desperately. They only wanted to get out of this realm and hide as far away as possible. After all, a battle of this level was not something that the two of them could participate in. In fact, they were not even qualified to watch the battle. However, the two white sword lights had locked onto their soul aura. No matter where they ran, they would not be able to escape. Bam! Bam! In the next moment, the white sword lights hit the two of them, and there were two loud thuds. The burly bodies of the two demon kings were killed on the spot by the sword light. They exploded into pieces that filled the sky, and a large rain of blood fell down. Ji Tianxing did not stop after killing the two demon lords. He swung his divine sword and chased after the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander had just retreated 1,000 feet away and finally stopped. He quickly performed a secret skill and used the power of the Dark Realm to suppress his injuries. Luckily, Ben Shuai was prepared and had the crimson armor to protect him. Otherwise, Ben Shuai would have been cut in half by that sword. Damn Ji Tianxing. I haven't seen him for a year. How did his abilities reach such a level? Even Ben Shuai is no match for him. Is his abilities comparable to the demon commanders? These thoughts flashed through the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's mind. He was filled with fear and disbelief. However, at this moment, Ji Tianxing charged over with murderous intent. Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, it's time for you to die. You had an upper-grade soul weapon to protect you just now, so you could still survive. Let's see how you're going to survive this time. Ji Tianxing shouted coldly. He swung the Burial of Heaven again and stabbed the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. Stab! Swish! A cold light that was condensed to the extreme burst out from the dark heaven's Burier sword and disappeared in a flash. In the next moment, the cold light traveled 10 miles and appeared in front of the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's chest. It exploded. Bam! A dazzling white light exploded like a mushroom cloud, rising into the air and illuminating the area within a radius of dozens of miles. Chapter 1343. Bang! With a heaven-shaking explosion, a dazzling ball of white light soared into the sky of the dark domain. Violent shockwaves spread out in all directions, sweeping across a radius of 100 li as they viciously battered against the walls of the dark domain. However, the dark domain was unbreakable, still releasing a powerful suppressive energy that sealed off the area for 100 li. A few moments later, the dazzling white light that blotted out the sky gradually dissipated. The Heaven Barbaric Demon Commander's figure had vanished. His fleshly body and soul had already been blasted into smithereens and dissipated between heaven and earth. The dark domain gradually calmed down. Ji Tianxing stood alone in the darkness. The battle was already over. However, he did not relax. He maintained his vigilance and wariness as he released his soul to search the surroundings. At this moment, something strange happened in the night sky 20 li behind him. The little black dragon remained in that part of the night sky, vigilantly observing its surroundings. However, a giant claw condensed from black light suddenly extended out of the darkness and silently descended from the sky, viciously swiping at it. By the time it sensed the danger and wanted to turn and flee, it was already too late. Bang! The giant black claw viciously slammed into the little black dragon with a dull thud. The terrifyingly great strength caused its body to twitch, and countless of its bones let out crisp cracking sounds. It fell from the sky and viciously slammed into the ground. Boom! A giant crater appeared in the ground that had long since been reduced to rubble, sending dirt and stone flying into the air. Cracks appeared all around the crater like a spiderweb. The little black dragon lay at the bottom of the crater, more than half of its body buried in dust. The parts of its body that were exposed were bent at strange angles. It was obvious that even its dragon bones had been broken. There were also many places where its dragon scales had shattered and fallen off, revealing bloody wounds and white bones. The little black dragon had suffered significant injuries. It struggled several times before it managed to crawl out of the crater. At this moment, the giant black claw hidden in the darkness silently appeared above the crater and viciously swiped at the little black dragon. The little black dragon had nowhere to hide and was about to be struck by the giant black claw. At that time, its injuries would be even more severe, and its true dragon body might even be destroyed. At this critical moment, a crescent-shaped sword light that was thousands of feet long suddenly tore through the dark night sky and slashed at the huge black claw. "Don't be so arrogant, demon." As the blazing white sword light slashed down, Ji Tianxing's furious roar filled with killing intent resounded. Boom! The huge crescent-shaped sword light struck the huge black claw with a loud bang, which shook the 9 heavens. Boom! The huge black claw shattered on the spot, disintegrating into tens of thousands of blood-red fragments, scattering in the sky. Ji Tianxing flew over as fast as a streak of light. He flew to the top of the pit and unleashed a huge golden palm, grabbing the little black dragon out of the pit. "Little black dragon, how are your injuries?" He was filled with worry as he sent a sound transmission to ask about the little black dragon's injuries. The little black dragon hurriedly replied in a rather weak voice, "Old Ji, there's no need to worry about me. I won't die. Be careful." Ji Tianxing nodded and hurriedly put it back into the sword world. "Rest at ease and recover. I'll deal with this demon." At the same time, the fragments of black light in the sky began to dance like butterflies, rapidly gathering together. Bush, bush, bush. With a flash of black light, the fragments of black light once more condensed into a savage monster that was thousands of feet tall. Its appearance was that of a primordial beast. Its body was thick and muscular, its head as flat as a python's, and it had a wide and bloody mouth. It had 4 thick limbs and a long dragon tail. 2 pairs of black wings had also sprouted from its back. This was a massive magical beast whose name was unknown. It exuded an extremely powerful aura and was shrouded in a layer of dark green light. The most terrifying thing was that its strength had reached the half-step essence soul realm. Ji Tianxing held the sword of burial of heaven and stepped into the dark night sky. He stared at it coldly and thought to himself, could this black giant demon be the supremacy that the sky barbaric demon commander mentioned? It actually has the strength of an essence soul realm? No wonder it could severely injure the little black dragon with one claw. However, since when did such a powerful being appear in the demon race? He knew very well that other than the ancient demon emperor, demon commander Ming Yi was the strongest. However, demon commander Ming Ye's strength had not reached the half-step essence soul realm. The black giant demon in front of him was far more powerful than demon commander Ming Yi, and he was unfamiliar with it. The black giant demon stood in the night sky. Its body seemed to have fused with the darkness, becoming faintly discernible. Its huge red eyes stared at Ji Tianxing. Its bloody mouth opened and closed, emitting a bone-chilling voice. Ji Tianxing, you don't know me, but I've long heard of your reputation and deeds. I've long wanted to tear you into pieces. In order to kill you with my own hands, I left the northern desert and crossed the entire Tianxian continent to find you here. Tonight, you will die without a doubt. There is no escape. The black giant demon's voice was as cold as 10,000-year-old ice. It was emotionless and sounded like the voice of death from hell. When Ji Tianxing heard its words, he frowned and pondered for a while. Suddenly, a thought flashed across his mind. In the demon race, other than the ancient demon emperor, who else dares to call themselves emperor? Could this guy be the ghost emperor? He knew that before the ancient demon emperor returned to the northern desert, the demon race had split into several forces. One of the more powerful forces was the thousands of demon tribes led by the ghost emperor. 1,000 years ago, the ghost emperor was a demon commander under the ancient demon emperor. His status and strength were higher than demon commander Ming Ye's. However, 600 years ago, the ghost emperor fell out with demon commander Ming Yi and the others. He established his own force, roped in many experts and tribes, and called himself the ghost emperor. Until 2 years ago, when the ancient demon emperor returned to the northern desert, the ghost emperor had no choice but to obey the demon emperor's orders. When he thought of this, Ji Tianxing came to a sudden realization. He stared coldly at the black giant demon and said in a low voice, "You are the ghost emperor who established his own force?" The black giant demon nodded and said coldly, "That's right. You guessed my identity so quickly. It seems like you know a lot about my race. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will be victorious in every battle." Ji Tianxing sneered and said in a playful tone, "If not, how could I sneak into the heavenly demon palace and escape the northern desert alive?" The ghost emperor also sneered and exuded an endless chill of death. "Since you know so much about my race, you should know that the purpose of my visit is for the Kenshin bloodline." Chapter 1344. Of course, Ji Tianxing knew that the ghost emperor was determined to win this time and would definitely not leave the matter at that. However, he was fearless. With his left hand behind his back and his right hand holding the sword of burial of heaven, he exuded a domineering aura. If this was a few months ago, with your strength, you might have been able to get what you wanted. But now, I'm sorry. Not only will you be disappointed, but you will also lose your life. The ghost emperor instantly opened his bloody mouth and let out a cold and sinister laugh. "Ha! The rumors are indeed true. You little bastard are truly arrogant to the point of being out of control. Since you are so stubborn, then this emperor will personally kill you and extract your bloodline. 10,000 ghosts kill gods." After saying that, he twisted his body and flapped his 2 huge wings. Then green light covered the sky and covered the earth. Tens of thousands of green dots of light fell from the night sky. Then each light spot emitted a dazzling green light and turned into a terrifying ghost face the size of a house. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. On the desolate land that was like a wasteland, countless white skeletons appeared. In just a few breaths, Tens of thousands of tall and terrifying white skeletons appeared in the dark realm, forming a sea of white skeletons. Ji Tianxing looked around and saw that each of the white skeletons was crystal clear. Their bones glowed like jade and were filled with powerful energy. Tens of thousands of skeletons were holding weapons made from blue soul flames. They flew up into the sky and charged at Su Quebec. Without a doubt, those tens of thousands of white skeletons were not ordinary skeletons. They were all elites who had been refined by the Ghost Emperor and had the strength of Sky Origin Realm. No one would be able to withstand the attacks of tens of thousands of Sky Origin Realm elites. They would definitely be torn into pieces. Only the Primordial Soul Realm elites had a chance of survival. Under the Ghost Emperor's control, the tens of thousands of white skeletons and tens of thousands of terrifying ghost faces swarmed towards Ji Tianxing like a swarm of bees, immediately drowning his figure. Ji Tianxing, enjoy the feast of despair and death. The Ghost Emperor stood in the dark night sky and looked down at the battlefield with a smug smile. Ji Tianxing was in the dark sky, completely submerged by the white skeletons and ghost faces. He was surrounded by skeletons and ghost faces from all directions. All kinds of blue soul flames and dark green flames were pouring over like a flood from the sky. His entire body lit up with dazzling golden light, forming a magic power shield. Furthermore, the golden light shield was surrounded by dense purple lightning, which looked like electric snakes slithering around it. Whenever the blue soul fire and the dark green flame came in contact with the shield, they would be blocked and shattered by the lightning. Then, they would turn into a torrent and spread in all directions. Ji Tianxing also swung the Burial of Heaven sword, slashing out streaks of lightning-infused sword light that wildly hacked at the surrounding skeletons and ghost faces. Bang 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 bang. A series of muffled booms erupted, reverberating madly in the dark domain, deafening to the ears. Countless white skeletons were shattered by the sword light, shattering into countless bone fragments that rained down from the night sky and onto the ground below. Even the ever-changing ghostly faces were twisted and deformed by the lightning arcs, collapsing and dispersing one after another. Although those white skeletons and ghost faces could not hurt Ji Tianxing in a short period of time, there were too many of them. However, there were simply too many of them. There was simply no way to kill them all. Therefore, Ji Tianxing opened the exit of the Sword World and summoned Ancestor 3 Absolutes, the Jinshan King, and Qian Yu to fight side by side with him. As soon as Ancestor 3 Absolutes appeared, he was surrounded by dozens of white skeletons. All kinds of blue soul flames formed saber light, sword light, and fire pillars that blotted out the sky and covered his body. He was furious and immediately summoned the body of the green light treasure tree, releasing tens of thousands of sharp green light blades that shot wildly in all directions. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The tens of thousands of sharp green light blades were as dense as a torrential rain of arrows, instantly shattering the surrounding white skeletons into pieces. The area within a radius of 10 miles was instantly cleared by him, becoming empty. His body quickly grew, turning into a towering ancient tree that was thousands of feet tall, extending hundreds of millions of branches, standing tall in the dark night sky. White skeletons and ghost faces from all directions madly rushed over, besieging him. He waved hundreds of millions of branches, fiercely whipping those skeletons and ghost faces, smashing those skeletons and ghost faces one after another. Then, the Jinshan King rushed out with his dark golden warhammer. Seeing the skeletons and ghost faces in all directions, he roared angrily and madly waved his dark golden warhammer, smashing those skeletons and ghost faces without restraint. Huge golden hammer shadows that were as large as mountains fiercely smashed those skeletons and ghost faces, making loud muffled sounds. But all the skeletons and ghost faces that were hit by the hammers were destroyed without exception. Qian Yu's method was even more violent. She directly revealed her 1,000-foot-long heavenly fox body, releasing shocking hurricanes, ice, and lightning, stirring up a shocking storm in the sea of skeletons. With the help of the crowd, the sea of skeletons and ghost faces that filled the sky rapidly reduced the number of skeletons and ghost faces. Ji Tianxing also continuously slashed out dense sword light, waving his palms to release waves of lightning, quickly destroying those skeletons and ghost faces. In just 20 breaths, the tens of thousands of white skeletons and ghost faces were wiped out by the crowd. Witnessing this scene, the Ghost Emperor frowned, his eyes becoming extremely gloomy. Despicable little bastard, he has the help of so many soul-refining realm powerhouses. No wonder he can live until today. The Ghost Emperor murmured in a cold tone, his body surging with soaring murderous intent. He released a powerful divine soul power, controlling the entire dark realm, crazily accumulating power. The white skeletons scattered in the dark realm, as well as various blue and dark green soul fires, all turned into a flood of colors, gathering in his body. When his power was accumulated to the peak, he roared with murderous intent. Ji Tianxing, go to hell. As he roared, he opened his mouth and spat out a blue and dark green pillar of fire, descending from the sky toward Ji Tianxing. It was a huge pillar of fire that was 100 feet thick, containing a terrifying power that could destroy one's divine soul. Ji Tianxing immediately swung his sword, slashing out a crescent-shaped sword light, fiercely toward the pillar of fire. Swing the sword. Bang. The sword light slashed at the fire pillar with a loud bang, producing a dull and loud sound. The pillar of fire immediately collapsed, exploding into a large number of blue and dark green soul fires, spreading in all directions. Old Ancestor 3 Severing was closer to the tree. The 3,000 zhang tall tree was immediately infected by the soul fire. Over 100,000 branches were set ablaze. The Golden Mountain King and Xianyu were also affected, being engulfed by the mysterious and terrifying soul fires. Immediately, they showed a painful expression, letting out muffled groans and screams. Chapter 1345. Ji Tianxing's expression changed when he saw that Patriarch Sanju, Golden Mountain King, and the others were injured. He immediately understood that this was the Ghost Emperor's scheme. The Ghost Emperor's target was not him, but Patriarch Sanju, Golden Mountain King, and the others. As expected, the Ghost Emperor opened his mouth again and spat out 3 more soul fire light pillars towards Golden Mountain King and the others. Swish, 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 swish. The 3 soul fire light pillars were extremely fast. They pierced through the night sky like lightning and arrived in front of everyone. Patriarch Sanju, Golden Mountain King, and Qianyu were unable to dodge and were about to be engulfed by the soul fire light pillars. At the critical moment, Ji Tianxing did not hesitate to use his secret technique and summoned the 7 astral soul magic swords. Swish! The 7 astral soul magic swords flew out and immediately turned into blazing white giant swords that were hundreds of feet long. They slashed towards the 3 soul fire light pillars. At that moment, the astral soul magic swords were extremely fast. They tore through the night sky like white lightning and caught the Ghost Emperor off guard. Bam! 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 With a few dull explosions, the 3 soul fire light pillars were slashed apart by the astral soul magic swords. They exploded into soul fire and scattered in the dark night sky. This time, Ji Tianxing was prepared. Before the soul fire could engulf the green light treasure tree, he put Patriarch Sanju into the sword world. Then he used his fastest speed to save Qianyu and Golden Mountain King. Everyone's astral soul was injured. Although it was not fatal, they still needed to recuperate in time. After Ji Tianxing sent them into the sword world, they immediately began to recuperate. In the dark realm, only Ji Tianxing and the Ghost Emperor were left. It was proven that martial artists below the primordial soul realm could not interfere in the fight between them. Only they themselves could determine the final victor. Swish! 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 The 7 blazing white astral soul magic swords flew back to Ji Tianxing's side and floated behind him. Every astral soul magic sword was dazzling white light. They emitted powerful astral soul energy and sharp sword intent. The Ghost Emperor stared at the 7 astral soul magic swords and observed them carefully. Suddenly, he had an epiphany. 7th tier soul cultivation realm? 7 swords condensed from divine souls? Didn't all human experts condense their divine soul dharma eyes? This damned bastard, What kind of evil cultivation technique did he cultivate? He actually managed to condense 7 divine soul swords? That's not right. That little bastard is only at the 7th level of the soul refinement realm. Why is his battle prowess so strong? The more the ghostly emperor thought about it, the more astonished he felt. Ji Tianxing didn't care about its shock. He unleashed all of his power and used a secret technique. Soul Slayer. His left hand formed hand seals and manipulated the 7 swords to form a 7-star sword array, which pressed down on the ghost emperor. Swish swish. The 7 divine soul magic swords instantly expanded, transforming into giant swords of white light that were over 1,000 feet long. They even transformed into tens of thousands of white sword lights. The profound and complicated 7 stars sword formation was instantly formed. It covered a radius of 10 miles and suppressed the ghostly emperor within it. Swish, swish. Millions of sword lights flickered intensely as they shuttled back and forth in the night sky, frantically trying to strangle the ghostly emperor. Within the sword lights, there were purple lightning arcs that crackled incessantly. Lightning was the world's most masculine and ferocious power. It was also the nemesis of evil spirits. On the other hand, sword lights were the sharpest and most powerful power. They could penetrate and cut through the ghostly emperor's body and soul. The power of this soul slayer was pushed to the extreme by Ji Tianxing. Even a first-level essence soul realm expert would have to be wary of it. The ghostly emperor was in a perilous situation and was in imminent danger. The speed of the sword lights and lightning was extremely fast. However, the ghostly emperor's body was as huge as a mountain. Being suppressed within a radius of 10 miles, it was extremely difficult for him to dodge. Bam, 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 bam. Following a series of explosions, numerous wounds appeared on the ghostly emperor's majestic body. Demonic blood splattered everywhere. Furthermore, countless lightning arcs struck the ghostly emperor, leaving countless pitch-black wounds on its body. Black smoke rose from the wounds. The excruciating pain made the ghostly emperor tremble as it roared furiously. The ghostly emperor immediately channeled a vast amount of dermic powers and condensed a blue shield to block the attacks of the sword lights and lightning. The ghostly emperor even waved its huge claws with all its might and used its ultimate secret techniques. It shot out various soul fires and sword lights in a vain attempt to break through the 7 stars sword formation seal. The 7 stars sword formation continued to attack the ghostly emperor. Rumbling sounds could be heard from within the sword formation and reverberated in the dark realm. After about 100 breaths, the power of the 7 stars sword formation gradually weakened. Only then did the ghostly emperor have the opportunity to break free. He finally broke through the 7 stars sword formation, causing the thousands of sword lights to collapse and shatter into fragments that scattered across the night sky. Ji Tianxing hurriedly controlled the 7 astral soul magic swords to fly back to his side and disappear into his mind. The ghostly emperor roared furiously. He struggled to break through the fragments of sword lights that filled the sky and returned to the dark realm. At this point in time, he was already riddled with wounds and his injuries were extremely miserable. His entire body was covered with thousands of wounds of different sizes. One of his 2 pairs of wings had been crushed. A large piece of flesh on his back had also disappeared, leaving only a rugged skeleton. Even the top of his head had been charred black by the lightning and was filled with charred holes. But, Ji Tianxing, you bastard! You deserve to be hacked into 1,000 pieces. I will tear you into pieces and grind your bones to dust. The ghostly emperor was infuriated. He had completely gone mad and had gone berserk. He roared and cursed hysterically. In the past 600 years, he had never suffered such miserable injuries. With his terrifying strength, almost no one could beat him to such a state. He stared at Ji Tianxing with bloodshot eyes. His eyes were burning with a raging blood fire. The monstrous anger in his chest exploded as if he wanted to burn the heavens. Heavenly ghost chasing sun. The ghostly emperor opened his bloody mouth and roared into the sky. Immediately after, his entire body was burning with blue soul fire. His body was also twisting and changing violently. In the short span of 10 breaths, his gigantic body had shrunk from 1,000 feet tall to 1,000 feet tall. His appearance had also undergone a huge change. From a ferocious ancient beast, he had become a giant burning with blue flames. At this point in time, he was 1,000 feet tall demon with a body as thin as a bamboo pole. His entire body was blue and green. He no longer had legs. His body floated in the night sky. However, he had grown 4 long bamboo-like arms. His black nails were as sharp as blades. His head was also covered by his long purple hair. There was no way to see his face clearly. Only a pair of green eyes could be seen through the messy hair. His body became a little blurry. It was as if he was real and illusory. This was the legendary demon that was comparable to an Asura, the heavenly ghost. The heavenly ghost chasing sun was the ghostly emperor's forbidden technique. Once this technique was used, his combat strength would increase exponentially. For an hour, he would be comparable to a first-tier essence soul realm expert. However, using this forbidden technique would consume 100 years of his cultivation and greatly damage his vitality. Unless he had no other choice, he would not use this secret technique. Chapter 1346. On the surface, the ghostly emperor in his sky ghost form was far less ferocious than the giant beast true body from before. However, when Ji Tianxing sensed the energy waves emitted from its body, his expression turned grave. That mysterious and cold aura seemed to have come from the abyss of hell, causing one's soul to tremble and their entire body to feel as if it had been frozen. The formless power of death and curse emanated from its body and permeated the dark domain. Ji Tianxing had no choice but to circulate his energy to condense a shield and borrow the power of the heaven-mending orb to resist. At this moment, the ghost emperor slowly raised his head. His pair of dark green eyes revealed a chilling aura. Ji Tianxing, I've underestimated you before, but you're still going to die today. You forced me to do this. I haven't used this forbidden technique for 200 years. Today, you should be proud that you died under this emperor's ultimate technique. The ghost emperor's voice was gloomy and cold like ice, and it contained dense resentment and hatred. It caused one's entire body to go cold and their hair to stand on end. As it spoke, its entire body lit up with a dim blue brilliance, burning with dark green flames. It slowly raised its slender arms and stretched out its 10 blade-like nails, grabbing at Ji Tianxing. Swish, swish. Suddenly, 10 dark blue light blades shot out from its 10 fingers, attacking as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, 10 zhanglong light blades arrived in front of Ji Tianxing, intending to kill him on the spot. At this critical moment, he had no time to swing his sword and counterattack. He could only extend his golden wings and wrap himself up. Wings of the golden rock. Pung ping pung. The 10 dark blue light blades struck the golden wings one after another, producing a series of dull and loud noises. Although those dark blue blades of light were specifically designed to restrain the divine soul, they also contained a terrifying force of impact. Ji Tianxing was sent flying back on the spot, tumbling 10 miles away. However, the ghostly emperor's figure flashed as he teleported over 10 miles away, instantly catching up to Ji Tianxing. This time, it raised its 4 arms and waved its 4 palms, shooting out 20 blue light blades towards Ji Tianxing like a rain of arrows. Ji Tianxing didn't have time to dodge and was hit by the blue light blade again. Pung 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 pung, another series of muffled sounds rang out, and he was sent flying again, landing 10 miles away. The ghost emperor teleported another 10 miles away and rushed to the front with his fastest speed, stopping Ji Tianxing. It crazily waved its 4 evil arms and slapped Ji Tianxing with a series of loud bangs. Ji Tianxing was sent flying back and forth like a ball, shuttling back and forth in the dark domain. Fortunately, he had the protection of the golden wings, which prevented him from being injured by the ghost emperor. However, his face had turned pale from the impact, and his internal organs had suffered some damage. Moreover, the mysterious power of the dark blue blade had invaded his mind and corroded his soul. He had no time to care about the ghost emperor's ferocious attacks, and hurriedly activated the power of the heaven-mending orb to heal his soul and resist the corrosion of the dark blue blade. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Ghost Emperor had already attacked him 6 times, from the northwest to the southeast of the Dark Domain, flying a total of 70 to 80 miles away. The power of the Golden Wings was greatly depleted, and their golden light dimmed. Their defensive power had also decreased sharply by 60%. Heavenly Ghost Soul Destruction / The Ghost Emperor roared as he unleashed his most powerful attack, unleashing his most terrifying killing move. It waved its 4 slender arms and ruthlessly slashed out 4,000-meter-long dark blue light blades towards Ji Tianxing. The 4 dark blue light blades gathered and fused into a 1,000-meter-long giant blade. It turned dark blue and was so condensed that it seemed to be solid. Pang! Following a muffled explosion, Ji Tianxing was once again struck by the dark blue giant blade. He flew back in a sorry state and crashed into the barrier of the Dark Domain. This time, the power of the Golden Wings was completely depleted, and they became dim. They retracted back into his body and could no longer be used. He stood in the dark night sky with his body bent over and coughed a few times. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. A layer of hazy dark blue brilliance enveloped his body, and it was still constantly corroding his soul and the golden swords. His consciousness was a little dizzy and blurry, and he was temporarily unable to counterattack. He constantly activated the power of the heaven-mending orb to devour and purify the dark blue soul fire. The Ghost Emperor stood 10 miles away and looked at him coldly. He sneered in a mocking tone, "Ji Tianxing, I have already said that you will definitely die today. How about it? Have you tasted despair now?" "Ha!" The Ghost Emperor sneered sinisterly. His entire body emitted an ice-cold aura of death, as well as a soaring murderous intent. Ji Tianxing lowered his head and silently cleared the dark blue soul fire. He did not open his mouth to reply. The Ghost Emperor was also not in a hurry to attack. He looked at him with a look of disdain, as if he had everything under control. "Ji Tianxing, accept your fate. Even if you have the Kenshin blood and divine weapons, it is useless in front of me. Obediently hand over the divine sword and let me draw out your Kenshin blood. Perhaps I can give you a dignified death. If you are stubborn, I can only let you experience the power of the Heavenly Ghost secret technique and let you die in pain and despair." Ji Tianxing slowly raised his head and stared at him coldly. He asked in a low voice, "Ghost Emperor, when the ancient demon emperor wanted to seize my Kenshin blood, it was to restore his vitality and strength, as well as to remove the bloodline shackles of the demon race. Now that the bloodline shackles of the demon race have been removed, the demon emperor's strength must have also recovered. Why do you still want to seize my Kenshin blood?" This question made the Ghost Emperor's body shake. He was obviously stunned. After a moment of silence, he laughed sinisterly. "Ha! Since you are already bound by my soul-devouring demon fire, you will definitely die today. I am not afraid to tell you the truth. His Majesty the Demon Emperor is carrying out a grand plan. This has been the wish of my race for thousands of years. Once the plan succeeds, my race will return to its peak and dominate the profound sky continent. For the plan to succeed, not only does he need your Kenshin blood, he also needs the other 4 divine items." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing suddenly frowned. A cold light flashed across his eyes. Seeing his expression change, the Ghost Emperor laughed proudly. "Ha! Do you think our target is only you? Too naive. The blood god's sons refined by His Majesty the Demon Emperor have already gone to various parts of the continent to carry out missions to seize those divine items. If nothing unexpected happened, they should have already succeeded. The divine hidden sect in the Vermilion Bird Mountains should have long been reduced to ashes and no longer exists, right? How is it? Are you very angry and heartbroken?" "Ha!" The Ghost Emperor laughed mockingly. He was very proud and carefree. Ji Tianxing's expression turned even uglier. A look of disbelief flashed across his eyes. Chapter 1347. Ji Tianxing did not expect that the Demon Emperor would not only deal with him, but also send the Blood God's son to attack the Hidden God sect. The Hidden God sect is hidden in the Vermilion Bird Mountain range, so how could they be discovered by the demon race? Could it be that the divine artifact that the demon race wants is the divine cauldron guarded by the hidden god sect? Thinking of this, his heart was filled with anxiety and worry, and his whole body was bursting with murderous intent. Ghost Emperor, didn't you deliberately investigate and search for the divine cauldron guarded by the hidden god sect? I'll tell you the truth, I just left the hidden god sect and obtained the divine cauldron. Now that the divine cauldron is in my hands, those blood god sons will be useless even if they go to the hidden god sect. Let them come for me. Ji Tianxing knew very well how powerful and destructive the blood god sons were. Moreover, the hidden god sect was big and had many disciples. Once the blood god sons sneaked into the sunless peak and released the power of calamity, the entire sect would be destroyed and countless people would die. Moreover, the people of the hidden god sect did not know much about the blood god sons and did not know how to restrain them. Therefore, he told the truth, hoping that the Ghost Emperor would spread the news and attract the blood god sons. However, Ji Tianxing did not expect the Ghost Emperor to laugh coldly. Haha, you are so stupid and pitiful. Do you think that the Demon Emperor sent out the strongest blood god sons just to steal a divine artifact? If it's not to steal the divine cauldron, then what divine artifact does the hidden god sect have? Ji Tianxing immediately frowned and revealed a trace of doubt. The Ghost Emperor did not want to say anything more and sneered, "Kid, you are already a dead man, so why are you still talking so much nonsense?" As soon as he finished speaking, he used an ultimate secret art. Blue flames surged out of his body and condensed into hundreds of mysterious and strange seal characters that suppressed Ji Tianxing. Soul Seal Art. The Ghost Emperor kept on waving his forearms, drawing profound arcs in the night sky and forming mysterious hand seals. The hundreds of ancient seal characters, supported by the power of the seal, pressed down on Ji Tianxing one after another, their power increasing continuously. Ji Tianxing was worried about the safety of the hidden god sect, so he didn't waste any more time. He didn't even bother to remove the blue soul fire in his body. Without any hesitation, he raised his left palm and used his most powerful technique, releasing a golden divine flame. God-slaying spear. A golden divine flame burst forth from his left palm and condensed into a 30-meter-long golden divine spear. It instantly pierced through the gloomy night sky and pierced towards the Ghost Emperor. Swish! With a sharp sound of breaking through the air, the god-slaying spear instantly pierced through 5 miles of the night sky, piercing through the numerous deep blue seal characters and ruthlessly stabbing into the Ghost Emperor. Boom! The Ghost Emperor was not prepared at all. Ji Tianxing, who was already heavily injured, was still able to release such a terrifying ultimate move. Caught off guard, it was struck by the god-slaying spear, and its body trembled as it was sent flying. Boom! The god-slaying spear pierced into the Ghost Emperor's body and suddenly exploded. It was like a giant golden mushroom cloud that spread out in all directions. Instantly, a radius of 15 miles was enveloped by a blinding golden light. The entire dark realm was illuminated. The Ghost Emperor's 1,000-meter-tall sky ghost body was also shattered by the golden divine flame on the spot. It turned into a sea of blue flames that covered the sky and spread out in all directions. The dazzling golden light shockwave spread out like a tide and quickly engulfed the entire dark realm. The deathly cold aura that filled the dark realm was dispersed by the golden divine flame in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Ji Tianxing also used the sword soul battle technique. He passed through dozens of deep blue seal characters and broke through the suppression of the soul seal art. He held the sword of burial of heaven in his hand and rushed to the center of the dark realm. The blue soul fire that was scattered in the night sky quickly gathered together and wanted to reform its body. However, Ji Tianxing didn't give the Ghost Emperor a chance to reform its body. He immediately used all his strength to execute the thunder attraction art. His hands formed hand seals and released a sky full of thunderbolts that blasted out in all directions. Kaboom! At least 100 purple thunderbolts that were as thick as an arm shot down like a rain of arrows and blasted those soul fireballs that had gathered together. Only a series of dull bangs and crackling sounds of thunder could be heard. Those soul fireballs exploded one after another and were completely annihilated by the thunderbolts. The earth-shattering thunderbolts continued to blast for 10 breaths of time. There were at least 10,000 of them. The blue soul fireballs that were scattered in the dark realm were all blasted and dispersed by the thunderbolts. Finally, they turned into nothingness. After 10 breaths of time, not a single trace of blue soul fire could be seen in the dark realm. The Ghost Emperor's sky ghost body was completely destroyed. Not even his divine soul was left. He was gone forever. It was only then that Ji Tianxing stopped casting the art. His face was pale and he was panting. The sky ghost body was too powerful. In order to completely destroy the Ghost Emperor, he had used up more than half of his thunderbolts. He only felt that his dermic powers were empty and he was a little dizzy. He stood in the dark night sky and rested for a full 15 minutes before he completely cleared the blue soul fire in his body. Then he took 2 soul-level elixirs to recover his dermic powers. When he had recovered more than half of his strength, he held the Sword of Burial of Heaven and used the ultimate move, Sky-Splitting Sword, to cut open a crack in the dark realm. Swoosh! His figure flashed and he passed through the crack and escaped from the dark realm. When he left the dark realm, the pressure on his body was greatly reduced. It was as if he had been reborn. He breathed in the cold air of the night sky. It was already late at night. The night sky was dark. He flew into the night sky without stopping and turned around to fly back to the Vermilion Bird Mountain range. While he was rushing back, he was silently praying, "I hope that those blood gods haven't attacked the Hidden God sect yet. I hope that Sect Master Shui can stop them. Please don't cause a disaster." In order to rush back to the Hidden God sect as soon as possible, he used the ultimate move of sword kinesis flight. He stepped on the divine soul magic sword and sped through the sky. With the passage of time, a whole day passed quickly. On the morning of the 3rd day, he finally rushed back to the Vermilion Bird Mountain range. He was about to reach Sunless Peak. When the sun rose, the red rays of the sun shone on the mountains. It was very quiet and peaceful. However, when Ji Tianxing was about to reach Sunless Peak, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. The sight of Sunless Peak and the surrounding 50 kilometers caused his expression to change dramatically. His eyes were filled with anxiety and worry. He saw that several mountains within 50 kilometers of Sunless Peak had collapsed. Piles of black scorched earth and ruins were piled up at the foot of the mountain. Everything within 50 kilometers had been turned into ruins. Countless cracks had appeared on the ground, and black smoke was still rising in spirals. Sunless Peak, which was thousands of meters tall, also had several huge cracks. More than half of it had collapsed. From the peak to the middle of the mountain, there was a huge crack that looked like a natural chasm. It seemed to have been split open by a sword. In the past, there were dozens of palaces and mansions on the mountain peak. It was an ancient and solemn scene. But now, the entire mountain peak was in ruins. Chapter 1348. The sky above Sunless Peak was still shrouded in a thick layer of black clouds and mist. The scene of blood and fire intertwining on the peak of the mountain looked particularly tragic. When Ji Tianxing descended from the sky and landed on the broken peak of the mountain, he saw that the ruins were littered with corpses and skeletons. One after another, white skeletons were lying haphazardly in the ruins. The tragic scene was shocking. Some of the skeletons were broken, while others were relatively intact. They were still in the posture they were in before they died, and they seemed to be in extreme pain and despair. Ji Tianxing couldn't recognize the skeletons, but he could guess that they must be the disciples of the Hidden God sect. Damn it! In the end, I was still one step too late. His heart was heavy to the extreme. His eyes were cold, his face was ashen, and his fists were clenched so tightly that they creaked. When he learned that the Hidden God sect was in trouble, he rushed back as fast as he could, but he still missed it. The entire Hidden God sect was dead silent. There was almost no living person in sight. It was as tragic as purgatory on earth. It was clear that the disaster had occurred a day or two ago. If he wasn't in a hurry to leave, he could have stayed in the Hidden God sect for a few more days. He could have fought the blood god with the Hidden God sect. Unfortunately, The world was unpredictable. In just a few days, the once sacred and dignified hidden god sect had become like this. At this time, a rustling sound came from the ruins in front of him. There were also a few painful groans and screams. Ji Tianxing immediately looked up and saw that there was some movement in the ruins 100 steps away. He hurriedly stepped over the ruins piled up with bricks and debris. His figure flashed and flew 300 meters away, arriving on top of a pile of blackened bricks and wood. A golden-haired young man was lying in the middle of several skeletons. His white robe was already in tatters and had been dyed dark red by blood. His golden hair was also soaked in blood, and his face was covered in dirty blood. It was almost impossible to see his original appearance. Below his waist, the flesh and blood had disappeared, leaving only white bones behind. His body was covered in wounds, at least 20 of them. But the most fatal ones were the 2 bloody holes on his forehead and chest. They pierced his heart and soul, respectively. Even so, he did not die immediately. He still had one last breath left. He struggled weakly, letting out a muffled groan. He opened his arms and hugged a huge white skeleton, refusing to let go. The skeleton was over 100 feet long and over 20 feet tall, like a small hill. Most parts of the skeleton were devoid of flesh and blood, but there was still a small section with some flesh and scales. That basin-sized scale was clearly the scale of a flood dragon, and it was gray in color. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing instantly understood that it was a section of the Azure Dragon's corpse. He looked around and saw a few pieces of the Azure Dragon's corpse scattered among the ruins. There were dragon skeletons with only white bones left, and huge dragon heads that were badly mutilated. Without a doubt, the Azure Dragon had been killed, and its corpse had been chopped into several pieces. And the golden-haired youth who refused to let go of the Azure Dragon's corpse must be Shi Zhongjian. Ji Tianxing felt as if his heart had fallen into an ice cellar. He hurriedly flew to Shi Zhongjian's side and called out, "Lion! Lion, wake up!" Hearing his anxious and worried voice, Shi Zhongjian, who was in a coma, trembled, and his fingers trembled slightly. "Brother?" His voice was extremely weak, and he called out weakly. Unfortunately, his voice was muffled in his throat, and ordinary people could not hear him clearly. Ji Tianxing was full of worry. He hurriedly used the green wood genuine qi and injected the rich vitality into his body. With the mighty green wood genuine qi, Shi Zhongjian recovered some vitality and opened his eyes in a daze. He looked at Ji Tianxing with misty eyes, his blood-stained lips moved, and his voice was weak. He said intermittently, "Brother, you finally awake." Ji Tianxing nodded with a heavy heart and quickly asked, "Lion, what happened? When did the Devil Clan attack? Where are Sect Master Shui and the elders?" 2 days ago, the Devil Clan suddenly attacked, sneaked into our sect, released a monstrous sea of blood, and killed countless disciples. I heard from my master that the leader was at the primordial spirit realm, and there were 2 powerful devil commanders. Most of the disciples were not qualified to participate in the battle, and they were caught off guard and died. The elders and deacons also died in the battle. Shi Zhongjian gradually woke up, his spirit was much better, and he spoke more and more clearly. But Ji Tianxing knew that this was the final radiance of the setting sun, and he would soon exhaust his last trace of vitality and die completely. He nodded with a heavy face, held Shi Zhongjian's hand, and said, "Lion, you don't have to say any more. Stop and rest. I will find a way to treat your injury." Shi Zhongjian looked at him firmly, shook his head and said, "Brother Tianxing, you don't have to save me. I know my situation. I have no power to reverse the situation. You don't have to waste your magic power. In the last time of my life, I can see you appear and say goodbye to you face to face. I have no regrets." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing's heart suddenly tightened, as if it was pierced by a needle. He stared at Shi Zhongjian and said in a low voice, "If I had stayed in the hidden god sect for a few more days, this tragedy wouldn't have happened. If I hadn't dealt with the hidden god sect, maybe the Devil Clan wouldn't have killed their way here." Without waiting for him to finish, Shi Zhongjian shook his head and said, "Brother Tianxing, don't blame yourself. This matter has nothing to do with you. Those devils came for the sect master. Meeting you in this life, adventuring with you, exploring the southern desolate great swamp, is the luckiest thing in my life. Brother Tianxing, thank you for treating me as a friend and trusting me. Thank you for coming back to see me and accompanying me on the last journey of my life. In order to protect me, Brother Tsang Long has already passed on before me. I also want to accompany it and fulfill my promise to be with it forever, to be its brother and partner forever. As Shi Zhongjin spoke, his voice became weaker and weaker, and the rest of his words could not be heard. His life force was finally exhausted. His eyes slowly closed and there was no more sound coming from him. Ji Tianxing held his hand and felt the temperature of his palm gradually dissipate until it finally became cold. His body stiffened, and after a long time, he slowly let go of Shi Zhongjin's hand. After stepping into the world of martial Dao for so many years, he was used to seeing too many deaths, and he had gradually become numb to it. However, Shi Zhongjin was different from the others, and it was a heavy stroke in his experience. He had seen many martial artists' reactions of madness, unwillingness, anger, despair, and hatred before they died. But he had never seen a person like Shi Zhongjin, who died peacefully, calmly, and without regrets. Even at the moment of his death, Shi Zhongjin did not blame anyone. Chapter 1349. Ji Tianxing recalled the times he met Shi Zhongjin and felt that this guy was so silly that he was adorable. Shi Zhongjin was definitely not a smart person, but he was definitely the most reliable friend and brother. Lion, I hope that you and Song Long can support each other and grow in the other world. I hope that you and Song Long can be brothers forever, share life and death together, and always maintain a pure heart. Ji Tianxing murmured and bowed towards Shi Zhongjin's corpse. The mountain peak was in ruins, and the corpses of the hidden god sect disciples were everywhere. Now was not the time to bury the corpses, and he wouldn't waste time on this. Swoosh! His figure flashed, and he stepped over Shi Zhongjin and Song Long's corpses, continuing to rush towards the depths of the ruins. His eyes searched around, and he released his divine soul energy to cover the surroundings, searching for any survivors. 15 minutes later, he searched the entire mountain peak, and searched the ruins within a radius of dozens of miles. Although most of the people were dead and corroded into white bones by the devil Qi, he still managed to find one survivor. However, he still managed to find a survivor. It was an elder with the strength of a spirit-refining realm cultivator. This person was the Great Elder, and his physical body had been cut into several pieces, completely destroyed. Only a ball of broken divine soul was left, and it was still curled up in the mind of his physical body, almost unconscious and in a deep sleep. After Ji Tianxing found him, he hurriedly injected boundless magic power into him and checked his injuries. In the Great Elder's mind, there was a large ball of dark red devil Qi that wrapped around his injured divine soul, and it was still corroding it. If no one came to save him, the Great Elder would definitely not be able to resist the corrosion of the devil Qi, and his divine soul would be destroyed in the end. Ji Tianxing hurriedly activated the power of the heaven-mending orb and injected a strand of sacred white light into the Great Elder's mind, dispersing and purifying the devil Qi. The Great Elder gradually woke up, and he used a weak divine soul sound transmission to communicate with Ji Tianxing. Young Master Ji, why have you returned? Ji Tianxing cast a spell to heal the Great Elder and asked anxiously, Great Elder, the matter is complicated, so I won't explain much. Where is Sect Master Shui? Were the devil race experts here for her? Where is she? The Great Elder thought for a moment before replying in a weak voice. Headmaster Darren fought the strongest expert of the demon race alone. During the battle, he left the sect and flew into the distant sky. I don't know where she is now or if she's still alive. Ji Tianxing frowned and asked again, Then do you remember where Sect Master Shui and the others went? The first elder said, The situation was chaotic at that time. I vaguely remember that they seemed to have gone to the back of the mountain. Ji Tianxing nodded and stopped asking about it. Great Elder, I'll put you into my magic treasure first. You can rest and recuperate. I'll go find Sect Master Shui now. After saying that, he took the Great Elder's soul into the sword world and placed it in a secret room in peaceful Earth City. Then, he got up and left the ruins of the mountain peak, flying to the back of the mountain as fast as lightning. He flew in the sky and released his spiritual energy, which spread out in all directions and covered an area of 50 miles. Whether it was the sky or the ground, nothing could escape the investigation of his spiritual energy. In the process of flying, he saw that the mountains behind Sunless Peak were filled with traces of battle. Many of the mountain peaks were slanted or had enormous ravines split open, causing dust and boulders to collapse. This was clearly caused by the shock waves of the battle between experts. After about 100 breaths of time, he had flown more than 400 miles. Suddenly, he discovered that in the mountains ahead, there was an open space of 100 miles in radius. There had been several thousand-meter-tall mountains there, but they had all disappeared. Several of the mountains had collapsed, turning into endless dust that filled the deep valleys at the foot of the mountains. The open space of 100 miles was a stretch of scorched ruins, covered in deep pits and cracks. Ji Tianxing was immediately certain that the ruins that had been razed to the ground should be where the final battle would take place. As expected, when he used his spiritual energy to carefully investigate the ruins, he sensed a wisp of spiritual energy in a 1,000-meter-deep pit. Even though the spiritual energy was very weak, it was much stronger than ordinary spiritual energy. He hurriedly flew to the top of the pit that was 20 miles in radius and looked down at the entire pit from above. He saw that the pit was like the mouth of a bowl, covered in fine black scorched earth and countless boulders. However, his gaze searched the entire pit and did not find Sect Master Xue's figure. He guessed that Xue Ruoyu was likely buried at the bottom of the pit, so he hurriedly used an earth attribute secret art to dig up the dust in the pit. After 10 breaths of time, when he had dug 100 meters deep in the pit, he finally saw a figure. It was an old woman with a head full of silver hair, wearing a luxurious robe, and wearing a gemstone hair ornament and a jade crown on her head. The old woman's robe had long been soaked in blood, and had dried up along with the soil, condensing into a dark red color, looking rather tragic. She lay motionless in the deep pit, her face covered in dirty blood and dust, and her silver hair covered in dust, dim and dim. At this time, except for her primordial spirit that still existed and could still emit spiritual energy, she looked no different from a corpse. Sect Master Xue. She is an primordial spirit realm expert. How could she be injured like this? Seeing Xue Ruoyu's situation, Ji Tianxing's expression changed drastically, revealing a look of deep shock, and only felt that it was unbelievable. He could not imagine that there was an expert in the demon race who could injure Xue Ruoyu to the point of death. Swoosh! He descended from the sky and landed beside Xue Ruoyu, hurriedly reaching out to hold Xue Ruoyu's hand, wanting to inject spiritual energy into her to check her injuries. When he touched Xue Ruoyu's dark red hand that was covered in blood, he suddenly realized that the situation was not right. Xue Ruoyu's hand was soft as if it had no bones, like a piece of soft meat, without any support or strength. The phrase, soft and boneless, was usually used to describe a woman's hand that was light and soft. But now, Xue Ruoyu's hand really did not have any bones. Ji Tianxing frowned, and checked her injuries again, and discovered something even more terrifying. Xue Ruoyu's body was like a piece of soft meat, lying limply on the ground, without any support at all. All the bones in her body had been dug out. It was also because of this that her body was covered in more than 300 wounds, and her blood had almost been completely drained, completely dyeing her a person of blood. Ji Tianxing's pupils contracted, his face turned ashen, and his entire body started to tremble. Incomparable anger and hatred caused his teeth to creak, and the veins on his forehead to bulge. Damned demon race! Using such torture on Sect Master Xue, removing all the bones in her body. How vicious! How cruel! If I do not kill all the demon race in this life, how can I appease the hatred in my heart? Chapter 1350. Anger aside, the most important thing now was to save Xue Ruoyu. Ji Tianxing channeled a large amount of magic power into her body and used his spiritual power to check on her injuries. After 100 breaths of time, he finally found out about Xue Ruoyu's injuries. Her physical injuries were extremely miserable. Not only were all the bones in her body scraped, there were also hundreds of wounds on her body. Her physical body was on the verge of destruction and would need at least 10 years of recuperation to slowly recover. In the depths of her mind, there was a 2-inch-tall golden figure floating. That was her primordial spirit. The golden figure was also unconscious and riddled with wounds. Its limbs were incomplete. To a primordial spirit realm expert, the primordial spirit was the source of life and power. The primordial spirit could leave the body and move freely even without the support of the physical body. However, Xue Ruoyu's primordial spirit's injuries were too severe. In comparison, her physical injuries were negligible. Ji Tianxing had not reached the primordial spirit realm and did not understand the structure of the primordial spirit. Naturally, he could not treat Xue Ruoyu's injuries. The only thing he could do was to continuously channel his soul power to help Xue Ruoyu recover some of her strength. In addition, Xue Ruoyu's primordial spirit was surrounded by a dense dark red blood aura that contained an extremely powerful and evil power. This dark red blood aura was like maggots attached to bones, constantly corroding her primordial spirit. Ji Tianxing channeled the power of the heaven-mending pearl and released a mysterious white light to help her remove the dark red blood aura around her primordial spirit. After a full hour, the dark red blood aura on her primordial spirit was removed and purified by the heaven-mending pearl. Xue Ruoyu's crisis was temporarily resolved and her consciousness gradually woke up. When Ji Tianxing saw that she was gradually regaining consciousness, he let out a sigh of relief and asked with concern, "Sect Master Xue, how is your situation?" Xue Ruoyu's physical body had no bones and her injuries were too severe. She could not move or speak at all. She could only reply to Ji Tianxing with her consciousness. She said weakly, "Little junior brother, why are you back? Quickly leave this place, it's dangerous." Ji Tianxing gently shook his head and said heavily, "Sect Master Xue, don't worry about me. You've already been unconscious for 2 days. The demon experts have already left." Hearing his words, Xue Ruoyu heaved a sigh of relief and said with some rejoicing, "Little junior brother, luckily you left in time and avoided this calamity. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable." Ji Tianxing didn't reply and asked in a low voice, "Sect Master Xue, who attacked the hidden god sect?" Among the demon race, apart from the ancient demon emperor, were there any other essence soul powerhouses? The ghost emperor, who is the strongest among them, has personally gone to kill me. Who else can deal with the hidden god sect and injure you to this extent? Xue Ruoyu recalled for a moment, then said with a resentful tone, "There were 7 or 8 devil clan experts who attacked our sect. Among them, there were 2 devil commanders and several spirit refinement realm experts. However, these people were nothing to worry about. More than half of them have already been killed by me and the elders. The one with the most terrifying strength and the most mysterious background was their leader, Venerable Bloodlust. That fiend's strength is comparable to a second firmament essence soul, a level higher than mine." Venerable Bloodlust? Ji Tianxing frowned and muttered doubtfully, "In the demon race, below the demon emperor are the devil commanders. Why is there a venerable title? Sect Master Xue, what does that venerable bloodlust look like?" Xue Ruoyu said coldly, "That venerable bloodlust doesn't seem to be a demon. His origin is a ball of bloody light that can transform into all kinds of forms. He can turn into a giant that's 100 feet tall, a beast that's 1,000 feet tall, and a bloody light that's 1,000 miles long. He can even escape into the void and conceal himself. He's almost immortal. I exhausted all my strength and even sacrificed a divine artifact before I managed to injure and repel venerable bloodlust." At this point, Ji Tianxing was certain that the so-called venerable bloodlust was a blood god created by the demon emperor. Sect Master Xue, before I killed the ghost emperor, he proudly said that the demon emperor had sent a few powerful blood gods to plunder a few divine items to complete the demon emperor's shocking scheme. According to what you've said, That venerable bloodlust should be a blood god. Blood god? Shui Ruoyu was stunned for a moment before she came to a realization. I see, it's indeed the legendary blood god. When I was dealing with the venerable bloodlust, I saw that he wasn't a demon race elite, but he was more powerful than an ordinary demon. That's why I had such a thought. However, the blood god only exists in ancient legends and hasn't appeared for nearly 10,000 years. That ancient demon emperor is indeed ruthless. He's worthy of being called the great demon of the ages to be able to create the legendary blood god. If a few more blood gods like the venerable bloodlust appear, I'm afraid that all the races in the world will be unable to resist them. The entire Tianxian continent will be plunged into misery and suffering. Obviously, Shui Ruoyu also knew about the legend of the blood god. Ji Tianxing didn't need to explain the origin of the blood god. With a heavy heart, he said, Sect Master Shui, actually half a year ago, I killed 2 blood gods. At that time, there were 2 blood gods that wreaked havoc in the various cities of the East Sea and the territories of the Water Tribe. They spread all kinds of poisonous plagues and disasters, killing tens of millions of people. The blood gods absorbed the blood and souls of the people to strengthen themselves. In a short time, they reached the soul refinement realm from the heaven origin realm. However, I didn't expect that the venerable bloodlust who attacked the god-hidden sect was actually at the primordial soul realm. It's not hard to imagine that the venerable bloodlust is most likely one of the best among the blood gods. He must have killed at least hundreds of millions of people and martial artists to reach the primordial soul realm. Hearing him say so, Shui Ruoyu was instantly filled with worry. She asked in a low voice, Tianxing, you mean that the demon emperor has created a lot of blood gods? Ji Tianxing nodded and said, half a year ago, the imperial tutor told me that the demon emperor had created hundreds of blood gods. Now that half a year has passed, the demon emperor must have created even more blood gods. I'm afraid that the number has doubled. Moreover, in the past half a year, the continent has been plagued by disasters and wars. I don't know how many millions of people have been killed. Those blood gods must have reached the soul refinement realm. Shui Ruoyu became more and more nervous and worried. Doesn't that mean that the demon race has gained hundreds of soul refinement realm experts? The best of the blood gods are comparable to the primordial soul realm experts and have an immortal body? Ji Tianxing didn't answer. He just nodded in silence. His heart was getting heavier. Shui Ruoyu was silent for a while. Suddenly, she thought of something and cried out in alarm. Oh no, little junior brother, quickly send a message to Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenin. Tell them to hide quickly. Chapter 1351. What? Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenin are also in danger? Ji Tianxing frowned and looked at Shui Ruoyu in confusion. Shui Ruoyu was also stunned and asked, Little junior brother, did the burial of heaven not tell you about this? What is it? Ji Tianxing was even more confused and could not make sense of it. Shui Ruoyu was sure that he did not know, so she explained patiently, You said just now that before the ghost emperor died, he revealed the demon emperor's plan and conspiracy to seize a few divine items. The venerable bloodlust attacked our sect to carry out the demon emperor's mission to seize a divine item. Its target is me because that divine item is on me. Ji Tianxing nodded and asked, Sect Master Shui, what divine item is the demon emperor after? A special divine item? Shui Ruoyu's voice was cold. Shui Ruoyu's tone was cold and filled with hatred as she said, That divine item is the only keepsake that Master left for me. It is also Master's inheritance. Keepsake? Inheritance? Ji Tianxing frowned again. Shui Ruoyu said leisurely, It's Master's rib, a divine bone. What? It's Kenshin's rib? Ji Tianxing's face was filled with disbelief. Shui Ruoyu explained in a low voice, Before Master left the Tianxian continent, he gave me a divine bone to integrate into my body in order to thank me for following and serving him. That divine bone is more mysterious than any divine item in the world. It allowed me to be reborn and my talent reached the peak. With the help of the divine bone, I could gradually become a soul refinement realm elite and break through to the primordial soul realm within 1,000 years. After 1,000 years of growth and refinement, the power of that divine bone has filled all of my bones and marrow. My skeleton is comparable to a divine item, and I have become a complete set of divine bones. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing was enlightened and thought to himself, no wonder Shui Ruoyu remembers Kenshin's kindness and has always regarded Kenshin as her master. She worships Kenshin like a god. Even though Kenshin has been dead for 1,000 years, she has never betrayed him nor forgotten him. Shui Ruoyu continued, the venerable bloodlust attacked our sect to seize my divine bone. This is the divine item that the demon emperor mentioned. Although I can't guess the demon emperor's scheme, I'm sure that he sent other elites to deal with Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenian. Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenian are master's disciples in name. Before master left the continent, he gave them a divine item each, respectively. The divine item that his master had given Emperor Yi was a divine dragon tendon that originated from ancient times. It was a dragon tendon pulled out from the body of a true divine dragon. The divine item is a drop of God's blood. According to master, it is the blood of a real god from the ancient times. Ji Tianxing heard this secret for the first time and was even more shocked. He muttered in disbelief, Kenshin's divine bone, a dragon's tendon from an ancient god, and a drop of God's blood? Kenshin is really generous to his own disciple? No, just a disciple in name. He also gradually understood why Emperor Yi, Xiao Wenian, and Shui Ruoyu would follow Kenshin to death and respect him for their entire lives. Kenshin's peerless martial strength and charisma were truly the best in the world, causing people to admire him. At this moment, a thought even appeared in his mind. How good would it be if Kenshin was still alive? He also wanted to see Kenshin's peerless glory with his own eyes. Just as his thoughts were wandering, Shui Ruoyu reminded him, Tianxing, don't waste any more time. Immediately send a message to them. Ji Tianxing was immediately embarrassed and said helplessly, Sect Master Shui, when I said goodbye to them, I only promised to contact them in the future. I didn't leave any transmission jade slips. Under normal circumstances, the transmission jade slips of soul-refining powerhouses would have their own divine soul imprint. Two powerhouses would have to exchange transmission jade slips with each other in order to directly send the transmission jade slip to the other party. However, Ji Tianxing, Emperor Yi, and Xiao Wenian didn't exchange transmission jade slips. The only thing he could do was to send a transmission jade slip to Xiao Han and let him inform Xiao Wenian. On the other side, he sent a transmission to Long Yunxiao in the central state, asking him to help send a message to Emperor Yi. After he sent the transmission jade slip, Shui Ruoyu felt a little more at ease. She said in a low voice, I hope your message can arrive in time. It won't take too long, otherwise, sigh. Ji Tianxing also asked someone to help send the message. Of course, he couldn't guarantee that the message would arrive in time. He could only sigh and pray silently in his heart, hoping that nothing happened to Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenian. At this time, he suddenly remembered something and asked Shui Ruoyu, Sect Master Shui, don't Kenshin have 4 in-name disciples? I've spent more than a year and searched all over the world, but I only found you, Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenian. May I ask Sect Master Shui, who is the other in-name disciple? Is that person surnamed Gu? Shui Ruoyu answered, her voice full of memories, that's right. He's the eldest senior brother of the 3 of us, and also the genius that Master valued the most. His surname is indeed Gu, and his real name is Gu Daoxian. Unfortunately, after Master left the profound sky continent, he mysteriously disappeared. Now that 1,000 years have passed, the 3 of us are in different parts of the world and almost no longer contact each other. No one knows where our eldest senior brother went or where he went. Perhaps he's still alive, or perhaps he's already fallen. Perhaps he's still on this continent, or perhaps he's already followed in Master's footsteps and left this continent. Ji Tianxing listened carefully and muttered in his heart, Gu Daoxian? Kenshin's most valued eldest disciple? Sect Master Shui? Then what is the divine item that Kenshin gave to Gu Daoxian? Shui Ruoyu was silent. She carefully recalled for a long time before she said in a deep voice, "I'm not too sure about the specifics. However, I've heard Ren Huangyi mention it once. Master values senior apprentice brother the most. Therefore, the divine item he gave senior apprentice brother was also the most astonishing. It said that the divine item that Master gave to his senior brother seemed to be a divine heart, the heart of an ancient divine spirit." What? The heart of an ancient divine spirit? Ji Tianxing's body shook, and his eyes widened slightly. The shock in his heart was like a stormy sea. Heavens! What kind of extraordinary and peerless expert was Kenshin back then? He took a rib from his body, and it was a divine bone. The gift he gave to an unnamed disciple was either divine dragon tendons, divine blood, or even a divine heart. Kenshin couldn't have slain dragons and gods personally, killing divine dragons and ancient divine spirits, right? Seeing Ji Tianxing's shock, Shui Ruoyu said gently, "Little junior brother, you don't have to be so shocked. Master is not an ordinary person, and he's as powerful and noble as a divine spirit. He's omnipotent. He can create all miracles." Although the divine items that the three senior brothers received were all divine dragon tendons, divine blood, and divine hearts. Chapter 1352. Even the burial of heaven knew about Shui Ruoyu's feelings for Kenshin. Although the divine items that Kenshin gave to his three unnamed disciples were shocking treasures, they were merely worldly possessions. The only divine item that he gave to Shui Ruoyu was a rib bone that he took from his body. To Shui Ruoyu, this was extremely significant and important. Ji Tianxing understood this, which was why he felt sorry for Shui Ruoyu and hated the demon race even more. After all, after venerable bloodlust injured Shui Ruoyu, he removed all the divine bones in her body. Such a blood feud was absolutely irreconcilable. Ji Tianxing thought to himself, the demon emperor sent out a few of his most powerful blood gods to deal with Shui Ruoyu, Xiao Wenian, and Emperor Yi to seize their divine bones, divine dragon tendons, and divine blood. Why is the demon emperor doing this? What is his scheme and plan? Other than these three, will the demon emperor deal with Gu Daoxian and seize his heart of God? Fortunately, Gu Daoxian has disappeared for 1,000 years. Even Shui Ruoyu, Emperor Yi, and Xiao Wenian don't know his whereabouts. The demon emperor shouldn't be able to find him, right? At this moment, Shui Ruoyu transmitted her voice to him, "Little junior brother, you don't have to stay here and take care of me. My injuries are too severe and can't be healed overnight. You have to report this matter to the emperor as soon as possible and ask for his help to destroy the demon emperor's plan. No matter what, we can't let the demon emperor's scheme succeed. Once the demon emperor obtains my divine bones, Emperor Ye's divine dragon tendons, and Xiao Wentian's divine blood, he will be able to condense an extraordinary body comparable to a divine artifact. If the demon emperor uses that divine body to carry out his scheme, I'm afraid no one on this continent will be able to stop him." Hearing Shui Ruoyu's reminder, Ji Tianxing's eyes flashed with a bright light. He immediately guessed the demon emperor's scheme. Could it be that the demon emperor seizing these divine items has something to do with reviving the ancestral demon god? When he thought of this, he became even more anxious and worried. No, I must stop the demon emperor's plan. I can't let him succeed. Ji Tianxing secretly clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with fierce killing intent. He said in a deep voice, "Sect Master Shui, I will immediately send a message to the emperor and ask the imperial court to send someone to clean up the mess of the hidden god sect. However, you can't stay here. It's too dangerous. I'll transfer you into my magic treasure space. You can go into seclusion to heal your injuries. I will personally go find Xiao Wenian and Emperor Yi and help them resist the blood god's attack, if there's enough time." Shui Ruoyu was shocked. She tried to dissuade him worriedly. "Little junior brother, even I am no match for venerable bloodlust. Even if you go and save them, I'm afraid it will be useless." Ji Tianxing shook his head and comforted her. "Don't worry, Master Shui. I've killed 2 blood gods before. I know their origins and weaknesses like the back of my hand. Moreover, I have the power and magic treasure to restrain the blood gods. Even if I encounter a primordial soul realm blood god, I still have a chance to kill it. Shui Ruoyu was finally relieved. She solemnly exhorted, "Little junior brother, you must be careful. Don't underestimate the enemy. Now you are the hope of the four of us. You are also the only successor of Master. The responsibility on your shoulders is heavier than any of us." After she finished speaking, Ji Tianxing put her into the sword world and settled her in a secret room in peaceful Earth City, allowing her to recuperate in peace. After settling Shui Ruoyu down, he took out a communication jade slip and sent a message to the emperor. He reported the details of the incident to the emperor in full detail. After doing all this, he left the giant pit and flew into the sky. Swoosh! He rode the divine soul magic sword and streaked across the sky like a shooting star, rushing towards the southeast. The Shao clan where Shao Wendian lived was located in the southern wasteland swamp. The boundless world where Emperor Yi lived in seclusion was located in the Mangu mountain range. In comparison, the Vermilion Bird mountain range was closer to the southern wasteland swamp. Therefore, Ji Tianxing decided to make a trip to the southern wasteland swamp first to personally check on Shao Wentian's situation. Even though he had already expended too much magic power and mental strength, he was truly physically and mentally exhausted. However, he did not dare to stop and rest. He did not even dare to slow down. He rushed towards the southern wasteland swamp with all his might. In the next 10 days, he rushed day and night without stopping for a moment. 10 days later, it was dusk. He was flying above a vast mountain range. Suddenly, a shocking scene appeared in the quiet and serene world of the sword. Ji Tianxing sensed the abnormality in the sword world and hurriedly released his divine soul power to check on the specific situation. He saw that there was a dazzling 7-colored pillar of light that shot into the sky from the city lord's residence in peaceful Earth City. That pillar of light was incomparably huge. It was 100 meters wide and thousands of feet tall. It contained boundless and mighty magic power. It wrapped around the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was as vast as the sea. After it rushed into the sky, it scattered in all directions, turning into rolling 7-colored waves that spread out in all directions. In a short 10 breaths, the sky thousands of miles around peaceful Earth City was covered by the 7-colored light, turning into a dazzling and resplendent world. That 7-colored light that covered the sky emitted a vast and mighty spiritual energy. It actually condensed into 7-colored spiritual liquid that sprinkled down like a downpour. The land thousands of miles was covered by the 7-colored spiritual liquid rain, causing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to surge, the light dazzling. After the spiritual liquid landed on the ground, the land outside peaceful Earth City underwent a dramatic change visible to the naked eye. The boundless vast grassland grew wildly at an extremely fast speed. The weeds that were originally chopstick tall actually grew to half a person's height in 10 breaths. Those small trees and shrubs that were as tall as a person actually became trees that were 30 feet tall in a dozen breaths. Originally, this growth required 3 to 5 years. But under the nourishment of the monstrous spiritual liquid, it actually completed in a dozen breaths. This was simply an inconceivable miracle. Even within peaceful Soil City, a shocking change had taken place. Grass and trees sprouted from the streets and alleys. Countless flowers of various colors also sprouted from the roofs of the various houses. For a moment, the grayish-brown peaceful Earth City transformed into a kingdom of flowers and plants. It was like spring had returned to the earth. This wondrous sight left all the Earth Spirit commoners stunned. The commoners walked out of their homes and looked up at the resplendent 7-colored sky, exclaiming in shock. At this moment, the 7-colored light that covered the sky began to flow and transform, gradually condensing into tens of thousands of 7-colored specks of light. Each speck of light was the size of a wash basin. They flickered with dazzling light, hanging in the sky like stars. At least 90,000 specks of 7-colored light covered the sky, forming a majestic sea of stars. It was so mysterious and vast that it made one sigh in amazement. Ji Tianxing was so shocked by this wondrous sight that his heartbeat sped up. Chapter 1353. Yao Yao. Yao Yao must have refined the Neptunian divine orb, which is why it's causing such a phenomenon. Ji Tianxing's eyes flickered with light as he murmured excitedly. In the next moment he personally entered the world within the sword and landed in Anteri City. He directly made his way to the secret room where Yun Yao cultivated. At the same time, the resplendent sea of stars that covered 1,000 miles of the sky dimmed and gradually dissipated. Many Earth spirit commoners remained where they were, watching the phenomenon in the sky. They refused to disperse even after a very long time had passed. Swish! Ji Tianxing hurried to the entrance of the secret room with lightning speed. He saw dazzling, 5-colored light permeate the surroundings of the room, giving off powerful pulses of energy. The 5-colored light gradually receded, and the pulses of power gradually dispersed as well. Eventually, it completely dispersed. The surroundings of the secret room settled down. Ji Tianxing waited outside for 100 seconds before the door slowly opened. Swish! As the door of the secret chamber opened, a dazzling 5-colored brilliance surged out like a tide. Afterwards, an ethereal, fairy-like figure in a white dress walked out of the secret room, shrouded in 5-colored light. Ji Tianxing's eyes were fixed on her, carefully observing the changes in her. Even though her figure and appearance were the same as before, there wasn't much change. She had not changed much, but the minute changes made her even more beautiful. She really did seem like a fairy, otherworldly. When she walked out of the 5-colored light, she was like a goddess from legends. She was so noble and holy that people could only look up to her and not profane her. Her beauty could not be described with words. No matter how fancy the words were, they would not be enough to describe her. Ji Tianxing was entranced. He was unable to shift his gaze away. There was only a single thought in his head. The goddess of Yaoguang who was worshipped by all the people and revered by all the gods in the ancient times should be like this, right? In the blink of an eye, Yun Yao stopped in front of him and smiled gently at him. Tianxing, I've made you worry. Ji Tianxing was awakened by her voice. He immediately reached out to hold her soft hands and said, Yao Yao. You've been in seclusion for 3 months, and now you've finally succeeded. I see that you have changed a lot. You must have gained a lot, right? Yun Yao nodded. She stared at him and said calmly and gently, That's right. After refining the Neptunian divine pearl, my vitality has increased by several times. I can extend my life by 10 years at the very least. Moreover, my magic power has increased by around 20 times and my strength has broken through to the 7th level of the soul refinement realm. I'm very close to the 8th level. The Neptunian divine pearl also has various wondrous effects, allowing me to open up my mind and allow my talent to reach a new level. I've even comprehended many secret techniques. Ji Tianxing became even more excited when he heard that. He said enviously, That's unbelievable. I've gone through so much danger and put in so much effort. I even endured the pain of being struck by the divine lightning and only managed to break through to the 7th level of the soul refinement realm after so much difficulty. Yao Yao, you only needed to refine a single Neptunian divine pearl to increase your cultivation by several levels, allowing you to reach the 7th level of the soul refinement realm. It really is the legacy of an ancient goddess after all. It actually has such heaven-defying effects. Sigh. It really is exasperating when you compare yourself to others. If others find out about this and make it public, everyone on the entire profound sky continent will be stunned by you, right? Yun Yao smiled faintly and shook her head gently. It sounds simple, but refining the Neptunian divine pearl alone was also life-threatening. Fortunately, I succeeded. If I failed, my soul would have been stolen away by the Neptunian divine pearl instead, and I would have died immediately. No one can succeed so easily. Miracles that seem shocking often hide great danger and effort behind them. Ji Tianxing also nodded with a gentle smile. Yeah, that's the truth. I was just shocked earlier as well, and that's all. All in all, it's already extremely fortunate that you were able to refine the Neptunian divine pearl and increase your strength by countless times. Yun Yao held his hand and looked at him in confusion. She asked, Tianxing, you must have gone through a lot of danger and suffered a lot during the 3 months I was in seclusion, right? Just now, I heard you say that you were struck by divine lightning. What's going on? It's a long story. Ji Tianxing told Yun Yao everything that had happened in the past 3 months in full detail. Only then did Yun Yao know that he had gone through so many dangerous and bizarre things. Only after a while of thought did she ask, Tianxing, are you going to the southern marsh right now to check on the Shao clan situation? Yes, Ji Tianxing nodded. Yun Yao said in concern, you're physically and mentally exhausted right now, so it's not suitable for you to travel desperately. You need to recover as soon as possible. How about this? You stay in the sword world to recover, and I'll continue on my way with the sword of burial of heaven. After a moment of consideration, Ji Tianxing said, there's no need. You've just emerged from seclusion, and your strength has skyrocketed. You still need some time to recover and consolidate your cultivation. It's best for the little black dragon to take care of the journey. It's already recovered anyway. As a result, the matter was decided just like that. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao remained in the sword world to recover in a secret room in Anshui City. The little black dragon carried the sword of burial of heaven and flew through the sky with lightning speed, hurrying towards the southern marsh. In a dimly lit secret room, Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged on the ground. Beneath him was a soul-level spirit-gathering formation to aid in his cultivation. He sat in the formation with a calm expression, and his deep eyes flashed with the light of contemplation. The first level of the path of Sword Soul is to condense the Golden Sword and Magic Sword. The second level is to condense the Sword Domain, a unique sword domain that belongs to oneself. In my current situation, it's a pity if I only condense an ordinary sword domain. I have to add other powers into the sword domain. Without a doubt, Ji Tianxing's seclusion in the secret room was not just to recover his magic power. He also wanted to use this opportunity to condense his own sword domain. The stronger he was, the more he desired the power of domains, and the more he wanted to condense his own sword domain as soon as possible. Once he successfully condensed his sword domain, his battle prowess would increase by at least twofold. After a long while, the light in his eyes gradually became determined. Other than the supreme sword Dao that Kenshin inherited, the most powerful powers that I control are the Divine Thunder and Divine Flame. Since that's the case, I'll combine the Divine Eye of Thunder and the God-slaying Spear into my sword domain. Both the Divine Thunder and Divine Flame are powerful powers that can kill enemies of a higher level. If I can successfully combine these two powers into my sword domain, it will produce an immeasurable power. At that time, my battle prowess will increase by at least 3 times. Chapter 1354. Ji Tianxing was pressed for time. He did not dare to waste any time and immediately went into seclusion to comprehend the second stage of the path of Sword Soul. The secret chamber was silent as time passed by. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Soon, 5 days had passed. For 5 whole days, he had been comprehending cultivation techniques and figuring out how to condense a sword domain. He had deduced, comprehended, and calculated thousands of times in his mind. Finally, he had simulated the embryonic form of the sword domain and had vaguely touched the threshold. He only needed half a month to try to condense the divine lightning sword domain. However, just as he was about to try, the little black dragon's voice rang in his mind. Old Ji, we are about to reach the Shao clan. Ji Tianxing was immediately jolted awake. He quickly ended his cultivation and left the sword world. Swoosh! With a flash of light, he appeared on the little black dragon's back. He looked ahead and saw that the surroundings were pitch-black quagmires that seemed boundless. A few hundred miles ahead, there were 2 adjacent mounds that stood tall in the pitch-black quagmires. The mounds were not big and were covered with dense forests and shrubs. That was the entrance to the Shao clan. It was called the Gemini Island by the Shao clan. Ji Tianxing frowned as he looked at the Gemini Island. He carefully observed the forests on the island and the quagmires around the island. Fortunately, the Gemini Island was well preserved. The forests on the island were still neat and tidy. There were no signs of fighting. The pitch-black quagmires around the Gemini Island were also as calm and silent as before. It seems like the demon race experts have not found this place yet. I hope that the tragedy has not happened and that I have arrived in time. Ji Tianxing secretly heaved a sigh of relief and prayed silently in his heart. After a while, he flew to the center of the Gemini Island and took out a token from his interspatial ring. This was the token that Xiao Wenyan had given him before he left the Xiao clan. Not only could it activate the Xiao clan's enchantment array, but it could also command all the Xiao clan disciples. Ji Tianxing held the token in his hand and waved his right palm. Rays of golden light shot out as he executed the array Dao's secret art. In the blink of an eye, a dazzling white light lit up in midair and formed a wide door of light. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing stepped through the light gate without hesitation and entered the enchantment of the Xiao clan. In the next instant he entered Xiao clan and saw a familiar scene. Beneath his feet was a vast and boundless grassland. The grass was waist-high, and the grass was filled with all kinds of flowers and plants. 100 miles ahead was a majestic mountain range that stretched for thousands of miles. It was like a brown dragon lying on the ground. The sky was blue with scattered white clouds floating in the sky. It looked very tranquil and lazy. Upon seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing was even more certain that the Xiao clan had yet to suffer a calamity. He leaped into the sky, crossed the vast grassland, and flew toward the mountain range in the distance. On the majestic mountain range, there were a few mountain peaks. Magnificent palaces and residences were built on the mountain peaks. Many disciples of the Xiao clan lived there. Ji Tianxing sighed in his heart. He had returned to the Xiao clan after so many months. He wondered if the Xiao clan's disciples still remembered him. Suddenly, his soul power detected a few large craters on the green grassland below him. In the hundreds of feet wide pits, dark red blood stains could be vaguely seen. There seemed to be a smear of dark white color. This is... Ji Tianxing frowned and released his spiritual power to investigate carefully. He then discovered that there were more than 10 skeletons buried in the deep pits. All of them were complete skeletons. He suddenly had a bad premonition and his face turned gloomy. As he continued to fly forward, he saw that there were deep pits and cracks on the vast grassland. In some inconspicuous places, such as the soil in the deep pits and the messy grass, there were dark red blood stains and skeletons scattered around. Oh no, I'm afraid something has happened to the Xiao clan. Ji Tianxing's heart tightened. He quickly increased his speed and flew toward the mountain range. Not long after, he flew to the sky above a mountain peak. There was a huge manor on the mountain peak. There were dozens of palaces and residences built in it. Ji Tianxing knew that this was the residence of the third branch's disciples. It was called Tingfeng Garden. When he first came to the Xiao clan, he stayed in this residence. At that time, this place was magnificent. All the gates and palaces in the manor were guarded by armored guards with swords. However, when he looked down at Tingfeng Garden from the sky, all he saw was a mess of ruins as well as a ghastly scene. The magnificent palaces had collapsed and turned into rubble. They were piled up on the broken pillars and walls. Countless houses and residences were in ruins, as if they had been trampled by ancient beasts. The ground was covered with wide gullies, deep pits, and piles of brick and wood ruins. Dark red blood stains could be seen everywhere in the ruins. Many white skeletons were scattered around. Most of the skeletons were relatively well preserved. They were still in the position they were in before they died. Some of them were fleeing in panic, some were dodging desperately, and some were fighting back with all their might. However, without exception, these disciples of the Xiao clan had died in a short period of time. Their flesh, blood, and souls had been extracted, leaving only skeletons behind. Ji Tianxing did not know anyone from the third branch. He could not tell who these skeletons belonged to when they were alive. However, he released his spiritual energy and searched the entire Tingfeng Garden for dozens of miles around the mountain peak. He did not find a single living person. There was not a single sound in the huge ruins. It was as silent as death. It was as eerie and terrifying as purgatory. All the signs before his eyes indicated that the Xiao clan had been killed by the demon clan. Moreover, no one in Tingfeng Garden was left alive. Damn it. In the end, I was still one step too late. Ji Tianxing clenched his fists. His eyes were cold as he muttered in a cold voice. He did not stay in Tingfeng Garden. He quickly flew into the sky and headed for the neighboring mountain peak. Not long after, he investigated the mountain where the second branch's disciples lived. The situation was the same as Tingfeng Garden. The entire mountain peak's buildings were destroyed. The ground was shattered. Hundreds of skeletons were scattered in the messy ruins. Not a single person was left alive. Ji Tianxing's expression darkened. His eyes turned colder, and the killing intent around him boiled. He continued to fly to the third mountain peak, then the fourth, the fifth. After 15 minutes, Ji Tianxing flew back to the sky. He looked down at the entire mountain range with a sharp gaze. This mountain range, which had borne the glory of the Shao clan for thousands of years, had changed beyond recognition. It was as tragic as a purgatory on earth. The entire Shao clan, which had thousands of disciples in each branch, were all dead. The Shao clan, which used to be prosperous and lively, had been massacred by the demon clan. Not a single person was left alive. Ji Tianxing's body was wrapped in a layer of dark red killing intent. His hands were trembling in his sleeves. His eyes were dyed with a layer of blood red by the monstrous killing intent. Demon clan. Ancient demon emperor. Even if I kill all of you 1,000,000 times, it will not be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. Chapter 1355. In the entire Shao clan, thousands of innocent Shao clan disciples had died under the butcher knife of the demon clan. Ji Tianxing's killing intent and anger could not be washed away even with all the water in the world. After a long while, he slowly retracted his gaze and flew towards the Pillar of Heaven's mountains with a heavy heart. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains was the forbidden area of the Shao clan and also the place where the Shao clan's patriarch, Shao Wenyan, lived in seclusion. This mountain was extremely huge and was over 10,000 meters tall. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens and earth, emitting a majestic aura. The first time Ji Tianxing saw Shao Wenyan, it was at the peak of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. He clearly remembered that the peak of the mountain was surrounded by a sea of white clouds. On the peak of the mountain, there was a piece of flat land with a radius of 10 miles. It was filled with dark red spiritual feather maple trees. The dense spiritual feather maple leaves were red like fire, turning the peak of the mountain into a dark red world. In the depths of the forest, there was a 2-story wooden house. In the courtyard, there was a 300-meter tall green maple tree. When he first saw Shao Wenyan was sitting under the green maple tree, facing the chessboard. He sat there for a long time without moving. Now Ji Tianxing passed through the clouds and fog. When he arrived near the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. The 10,000-meter tall mountain had disappeared. He passed through the layers of fog and saw the scene below clearly. It turned out that the towering Pillar of Heaven's mountains had been cut in half. The entire mountain had collapsed and turned into endless rocks. They were piled up in the deep valley at the foot of the mountain, forming a few hundred miles of ruins. The ground around the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was filled with wide gullies and deep pits. The nearby mountains were also affected and turned into rubble. What a tragic scene! Ji Tianxing could imagine the scene of Shao Wenyan and the blood god fighting just by looking at the few hundred miles of ruins and the huge cracks in the surroundings. They must have fought until the mountains collapsed and the sun and moon lost their light. After a moment of silence, he quickly collected his thoughts and released his spiritual energy to search carefully in the ruins. Shao Wenyan, you must not die. The Pillar of Heaven's mountain that supported the Shao clan's barrier has collapsed. You, the pillar that supported the Shao clan, can't fall too. He prayed silently in his heart as he looked around anxiously. An invisible divine soul power covered an area of dozens of miles and went deep into the ground to search, not missing a single inch. Time passed quietly. The surroundings of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains were deathly silent. Even the air seemed to have frozen. Ji Tianxing's face became more and more solemn, and his expression became more and more unsightly. Very quickly, an hour passed. He searched the area within a radius of a few hundred miles, almost turning the entire ruins upside down. However, he still couldn't find Xiao Wenyan. He didn't even find a corpse or a fragment of a magical treasure. Damn it! How could this be? Even if Xiao Wenyan was killed, there shouldn't be no trace left behind. Ji Tianxing was filled with anxiety. He stared at the ruins with gloomy eyes and muttered to himself. He was unwilling to give up, so he searched the ruins of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains from top to bottom. This time, he searched even more carefully. His divine soul power went deep into the ground for 40 miles, and even a grain of sand had to be checked. Finally, after an hour, when he searched to the edge of the ruins, he finally found something. 30 miles underground, in the layers of rock layers, there was a subtle fluctuation of dermic powers. This discovery made Ji Tianxing energized. A glimmer of hope reappeared in his despondent eyes. Swoosh! He quickly used the earth escape technique and drilled deep into the ground, flying towards the rock layer. In just a few seconds, he was 40 miles underground and drilled into the rock layer that was as hard as steel. After a careful inspection, he found a black metal piece in the dense and thick rock layer. He held the metal piece in his palm and observed it carefully. He saw that the black metal piece was only the size of a fingernail. It looked simple and ancient, as if it had gone through tens of thousands of years. The edges of the metal piece weren't regular, and there were many cracks on it. It was like a fragment of a magical treasure that had been broken. No matter how he looked at it, this black metal piece was unremarkable. It was no different from scrap metal. But Ji Tianxing was very sure that the fluctuation of dermic powers just now came from this black metal piece. He took the black metal piece and left the underground and returned to the sky. Holding the black metal piece in his hand, he turned it over and over for a long time. Then he gradually found some clues. The facts proved that his guess was not wrong. This black metal piece was indeed a fragment of an ancient magical treasure. It still contained a mysterious power. He used his divine soul power to infuse into the black metal piece, and vaguely found that there was a small magical treasure space in the black metal piece. But the magical treasure space was protected by a mysterious array. If he wanted to investigate the situation in the magical treasure space, he had to break the protective array. I searched all around the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, but I didn't find Xiao Wenyan, nor did I find any useful clues. The only clue is this black metal piece. I hope it can bring about a miracle, Ji Tianxing muttered to himself. He then focused on studying the array and thinking of a way to break it. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Very quickly, 10 hours had passed. He studied for half a day and even entered the Kenshin Palace and went to the Heavenly Book Pavilion. Only then did he find information about the mysterious array. In the end, he was sure that this black metal piece was a product of the ancient era. It should be a fragment of some magical treasure. He pondered for an entire day, and only then did he deduce a way to break it. Then, he started to cast spells to break the array. 2 days later, he used all his skills and exhausted his mind. Finally, he broke the protective array of the magical treasure space. The magical treasure space lost its protection and was exposed to him without any secrets. He didn't care about catching his breath. He impatiently released his divine soul power and probed into the magical treasure space. He saw that in the magical treasure space with a radius of 30 feet, there was a dried corpse lying there. The dried corpse was a human male. The green robe he wore had long been torn and had become a pile of rags. There was not a single drop of blood in the corpse. It was dry as if it had been baked. The withered skin and muscles tightly wrapped around a skeleton. It had long lost its breath of life. However, in the head of the dried corpse, there was a very weak divine soul fluctuation that was gently pulsing. Although the dried corpse was beyond recognition, and it was impossible to distinguish its gender and age, Ji Tianxing was not unfamiliar with the divine soul fluctuation that came from the dried corpse. His face suddenly changed, and he exclaimed in disbelief, "Xiao Wenyan! It's actually Xiao Wenyan. He has been drained of blood and turned into a dried corpse, and he's still hiding in this black metal piece." Seeing the dignified old man from back then turn into such a miserable state, other than shock, Ji Tianxing felt even more anger and hatred. Shui Ruoyu's divine bone had been removed, and Xiao Wentian's divine blood had also been extracted. Chapter 1356. The situation was urgent. Ji Tianxing had no choice but to suppress his anger and treat Xiao Wentian immediately. He first channeled a vast amount of spiritual energy into Xiao Wentian's body to help him replenish his spiritual energy. An hour later, Xiao Wentian's soul fluctuations became even stronger, and his injuries gradually stabilized. Ji Tianxing spent an entire day carefully treating his spiritual energy injuries and removing the demonic qi from his spiritual energy. Next, he used the green wood genuine qi to heal Xiao Wentian's body. Unfortunately, Xiao Wentian's body had become a dried corpse and had lost all vitality. Even if Ji Tianxing spent an entire day using the green wood genuine qi to heal Xiao Wentian, it was useless. Helpless, he could only put Xiao Wentian's body into the sword world and placed it in the green light treasure tree. The green light treasure tree's boundless vitality and green wood genuine qi could nourish Xiao Wentian's body for a long time and prevent it from being damaged. In the future, Ji Tianxing could think of a way or find a suitable blood for Xiao Wentian. Only then could he truly save Xiao Wentian's body. After all, if he wanted to restore Xiao Wentian's body to life, he needed fresh blood. Ji Tianxing temporarily settled Xiao Wentian down. He then turned around and left the ruins, flying toward the exit of the Xiao clan's barrier. An hour later, he left the Xiao clan through the exit of the barrier. Standing in the sky above Gemini Island, he looked down at Gemini Island and muttered to himself, "Other than Xiao Wentian, the entire Xiao clan has been annihilated. I, Ji Tianxing, will remember this blood feud in my heart. I will use my life to kill the Demon King and avenge the Xiao clan." After saying that, he summoned the little black dragon and flew high into the sky. The hidden god sect and the Xiao clan have suffered a great calamity. Shui Ruoyu and Xiao Wentian had their divine bones and divine blood stolen by the blood god. I hope Emperor Yi has already received the news and can leave the Mangu mountain range in time to avoid this calamity. With a heavy heart, he prayed silently. The little black dragon flew across the sky like a ray of light and returned to Zhongzhou at the fastest speed possible. Ji Tianxing entered the sword world and continued to cultivate in seclusion, trying to condense the divine lightning sword domain. Unknowingly, half a month had passed. Ji Tianxing had been cultivating in seclusion for 15 days and nights, and he was beginning to see results. After thousands of attempts, he had already comprehended the essence of the sword domain and could successfully condense it. Moreover, the sword domain contained the power of golden divine flames and purple lightning, and it could release powerful killing moves. However, Ji Tianxing's foundation was still shallow. The divine lightning sword domain that he condensed was not big. It could only cover an area of 10 miles. He still needed a long time to comprehend and cultivate in order to make the divine lightning sword domain wider, more stable, and more powerful. On the evening of the 16th day, Ji Tianxing returned to the central continent and arrived at the heaven-connecting peak in the depths of the sky-connecting mountain range. Under the setting sun, heaven-reaching peak was as majestic and imposing as ever. The many palaces on the mountain peak were also covered with a layer of dazzling golden light. Ji Tianxing was not in the mood to enjoy the beautiful scenery. He flew to the mountainside as fast as the wind and wanted to enter the imperial court to have an audience with the emperor. After the imperial court guards at the mountainside confirmed his identity, they respectfully let him pass. He hurried to the mountaintop and entered the heavenly palace under the lead of the imperial guard captain. Still in the spacious and bright study, he saw the emperor who was dealing with military affairs. The emperor was wearing a golden dragon robe and a purple gold dragon jade crown. He was leaning over the large table, holding the imperial brush and writing a personal decree. Ji Tianxing entered the study and bowed with a calm expression. Ji Tianxing pays his respects to the emperor. The emperor did not raise his head. He was still holding the imperial brush and writing the decree. He said in a low and dignified tone, "Ji Tianxing, wait at the side first." We will talk after this emperor deals with the military affairs. Ji Tianxing acknowledged and stood in place to wait. He silently glanced at the table and saw dozens of memorials piled up on the table. Most of them were urgent military memorials. Seeing the emperor's solemn expression and the deep worry between his brows, he had a bad premonition. He was afraid that the war at the front line was in a critical situation. After 100 breaths, the emperor finally finished writing the decree. He called for an imperial guard to pass the decree down. After the imperial guard left, the emperor put down the imperial brush in his hand. He closed his eyes and leaned back on the jade chair. His right hand gently rubbed the space between his eyebrows, revealing a tired expression. Ji Tianxing, this emperor has received the communication jade slip you sent to this emperor. This emperor already knows about what happened to the Hidden God sect and the Demon Emperor's conspiracy. Although the Hidden God sect was destroyed and suffered heavy casualties, their mission was completed. It is already very fortunate that you were able to obtain the heavenly Dipper God Fire Cauldron. Ji Tianxing nodded and reported in a heavy tone. After leaving the Hidden God sect, this subordinate rushed to the Shao clan in the Great Swamp of the Southern Wasteland. Unfortunately, this subordinate was one step too late. When this subordinate arrived at the boundary of the Shao clan had also suffered a great calamity and was completely destroyed. The Shao clan was also destroyed by the demon race. The emperor suddenly opened his eyes and looked at him with a sharp gaze. What about Shao Wenyin? Is he still alive? Ji Tianxing said in a low voice. Fortunately, he is not dead. However, his physical body has been destroyed. Only a trace of his divine soul is left. I don't know how long it will take for him to recover. The emperor's gaze was somewhat gloomy. He said in a resentful tone, the Hidden God sect and the Shao clan have both been killed. The only one left is Emperor Yi, who is living in seclusion in the Mangu mountain range. After you sent this emperor the message, this emperor asked Yun Shao to personally bring people to the Mangu mountain range to pass on the message. Ji Tianxing quickly asked, what was the result? Did the emperor see Emperor Yi? The emperor shook his head and said in a low voice, when Yun Shao brought people to the Mangu mountain range, they could not find the entrance to the boundless world at all. They returned empty-handed 10 days ago. According to Yun Zhao's report, there were traces of fighting near the entrance to the boundless world. The mountains and rivers were all destroyed. Yun Shao suspected that the boundless world had been destroyed. That was why they could not find the entrance. When the emperor said this, Ji Tianxing suddenly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire heart turned cold. In that case, Emperor Yi has also met with misfortune. He was attacked by the demon race experts. The emperor nodded slightly and said worriedly, previously, you mentioned in the jade slip that the demon emperor wants to seize a few divine objects. It is a shocking conspiracy. It is very likely that it is related to the ancestor demon god. Based on the current situation, the demon emperor has very likely obtained 3 divine objects. His plan is not far from success. No matter what, we cannot let his scheme succeed. Ji Tianxing nodded and said in a serious tone, there should not be any problems in the short term. I will do my best to stop it. After a pause, he asked again, Emperor, this subordinate sees that you look anxious and worried. Are you worried about the battle at the front line? The emperor looked at him deeply and nodded. He said in a low voice, the battle at the northern border has been completely defeated. Chapter 1357. Ji Tianxing had been running around outside for half a year and had never heard about the situation of the battlefield. He did not understand the situation of the continent. When he suddenly heard this news, he knew that the war was so tragic. The situation of the Tianxian land had developed to such a severe state. His body stiffened as he stood on the spot, revealing a face full of disbelief. He lost his voice and asked, how could this be? Didn't the demon race start a war with my race, the water race, and the demon race at the same time? The demon race army is fighting on 3 fronts. How could they still have such terrifying power? The emperor looked to the north with a gloomy expression. He said with a serious tone, The demon race has removed the bloodline shackles and developed rapidly, but this is not the main reason. The real culprit is the blood god's illusions created by the demon emperor. Each blood god's illusions is a killing weapon on the battlefield, a peerless murderous weapon. They can absorb the blood and soul of the dead to quickly increase their power, and they can also create earth-shattering disasters. Just over 60 blood god's illusions were sent to the northern border battlefield, but in just half a year, they have all grown to the refined spirit realm. The best of them, who killed the most soldiers and civilians, even broke into the primordial spirit realm. The blood god's illusions with such power are called supremes by the demon race. They are simply the demons on the battlefield, no one can stop them. Ji Tianxing's expression and mood were extremely gloomy. He nodded and said, "I already expected this to happen, but I didn't expect this day to come so quickly. Emperor, what do you plan to do next?" The emperor was silent for a moment, then he said in a low voice, "Not only my race's defense line has collapsed, the water race and the demon race are also in the same situation. They also cannot resist the attack of the demon race army. For now, my race's soldiers can only shrink the defense line and keep retreating. I would rather give up the border and part of the territory than make unnecessary sacrifices and let the demon race's power grow crazily. If we want to stop the demon race's attack and turn the situation around, we must think of a way to deal with the blood god's illusions. I have already ordered all the elite warriors that can be mobilized to the northern border battlefield and wait for an opportunity to encircle the blood god's illusions." Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and nodded. The imperial emperor is wise. The blood god is the biggest threat and must be dealt with first. However, the blood god scions have a special physique that is almost immortal. They need special power and methods to completely destroy them. The imperial emperor nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "Of course, I know this." The imperial court has a batch of magic treasures and secret manuals that can restrain the power of the blood god. This emperor has already passed down the order to bestow those talismans and secret arts to the experts and generals who are rushing to the battlefield. Pausing, he looked deeply at Ji Tianxing and said, "You don't have to worry about the war for now. The imperial court will do its best to deal with it. You've just returned to the central state, so you must have many things to do. Go and do your own things. When the imperial court truly needs you, I will naturally send you the order." Ji Tianxing understood what he meant, so he cupped his hands and bowed, "Yes, Your Majesty." This subordinate will take his leave. The imperial emperor waved his hand and picked up the memorial on the table, continuing to deal with official business. Ji Tianxing turned and walked out of the study, quickly leaving the imperial court. 12 hours later, Ji Tianxing returned to the central state city as fast as lightning. Standing in the middle of the bustling and vast city, in the middle of the crowded streets, he looked at the familiar scenery around him, and a complicated feeling arose in his heart. 10 months ago, when I left the central state city, I was only at the 3rd layer of the soul refinement realm. Now, after 10 months of running and suffering, my strength has increased by more than 10 times, reaching the 7th layer of the soul refinement realm. The central state city is still bustling and the people are still living and working in peace. But I don't know how long this peaceful and quiet life can last. The human army's defense line was constantly collapsing and the demon army had already killed their way into the human territory. His heart was filled with worry, as if he could foresee that the demon army would soon kill their way into the central state city. At that time, what kind of scene would the central state city be like? Just as his thoughts were churning, a spiritual light suddenly flew over from the sky and landed in front of him. He reached out and grabbed the spiritual light, only to see that it was a communication jade slip. However, this communication jade slip was not for him. The jade slip had Yun Yao's soul imprint, so it was obviously sent to Yun Yao by someone else. He hurriedly opened the sword world and woke up Yun Yao, who was cultivating. Swish! With a flash of white light, Yun Yao left the sword world and appeared beside Ji Tianxing. After she landed, she looked around and revealed a relaxed expression. "Tianxing, have we returned to the central state city?" Ji Tianxing nodded and handed the communication jade slip to her. "Yao Yao, here is your communication jade slip." Yun Yao glanced at the silver-white communication jade slip and hurriedly reached out to take it. She injected her divine sense into it and read the information in the jade slip. A moment later, she finished reading the information in the jade slip and put it away. Her expression was a little hesitant. After hesitating for a moment, she said to Ji Tianxing, "Tianxing, this jade slip was sent by my father. He asked me to hurry back to Cloud Soul Palace. There is something important." "Uncle asked you to return to Cloud Soul Palace?" Suddenly hearing this news, Ji Tianxing's expression changed slightly and he frowned. A thought flashed through his mind and he had a bad premonition. There are only 2 months left until the 1-year deadline set by the palace master. Uncle Yun wants Yao Yao to return to Cloud Soul Palace. I'm afraid it has something to do with this matter. Is Yao Yao going to be taken away? Thinking of this, his heart tightened and his fists secretly clenched in his sleeves. Yun Yao saw that his expression was a little strange and knew that he was worried. She held his hands and said gently, "Tianxing, you don't have to worry. I know what to do. I'll go back to Cloud Soul Palace first and see why my father is looking for me. At that time, if there is any situation or change, I'll contact you again." Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and shook his head. He said, "Yao Yao, I'll go back to Cloud Soul Palace with you. Sect Master Shui and Xiao Wenyan are both heavily injured. I can ask Miracle Dr. Bailey to save them." "That's good too." Yun Yao nodded and agreed without hesitation. But at this moment, another light flew from the sky and landed in Ji Tianxing's hand. The 5-colored light wrapped around a communication jade slip. The jade slip had his divine sense imprint on it. It was sent to him. He held the jade slip in his hand and injected his divine sense into it. He immediately received the message in the jade slip. This jade slip was sent by Long Yun Xiao. There was only one sentence in it. Chapter 1358. Ji Tianxing's expression changed when he saw the message, and a glint flashed in his eyes. He quickly put away the jade scroll and said to Yun Yao, "Yao Yao, go back to Cloud Spirit Palace first. I have an urgent matter and need to go to the Monarch Palace to see someone." Yun Yao saw his strange expression and had a bad feeling in her heart. She was a little worried. She stared at Ji Tianxing and said in a serious tone, "Tianxing, I know that you have always been calm and wise. You are not an impulsive person. Right now, the situation on the continent is chaotic and our race is in danger. You cannot act rashly and must consider the big picture. Whether it is for the human race or for your own safety, you must consider the long term. You would rather endure for now." Without a doubt, Yun Yao's words had a deeper meaning. She thought that Ji Tianxing was going to see the Monarch Palace's master and was worried that there would be some conflict. Ji Tianxing also stared at her and said in a serious tone, "Yao Yao, we have known each other for many years but the time we have spent together is very short. To have you as my confidant and to marry you is the luckiest thing in my life. We have been through so many ups and downs together. Perhaps there will be more twists and turns and dangers in the future. But no matter what, I will always protect you. If one day we are separated, I will find you even if I have to go up to the heavens and down to the earth." At this point, the two of them fell silent and looked at each other with deep emotions. Yun Yao slowly opened her arms and hugged Ji Tianxing tightly. She leaned on his shoulder and closed her eyes to feel his heartbeat and breathing. After a long time, she finally left Ji Tianxing's embrace and waved goodbye to him. She turned and flew into the sky, far away. Ji Tianxing stood on the crowded street and watched her figure disappear into the sky. He stood there for a long time before he withdrew his gaze and flew back to the forest of divine monuments. Not long after, he returned to the Monarch Palace. After 10 months, the Monarch Palace was still peaceful and there was no change. He flew across the sky as fast as lightning, passing through the grasslands and numerous mountain peaks, rushing towards Yun Xiao Peak where Long Yun Xiao lived. As he hurried along, he also had some doubts in his mind. Strange, since the outbreak of the demon race's chaos, Long Yun Xiao has been busy dealing with government affairs and rarely returned to the monarch's residence. Why would he ask me to meet him in Cloudy Palace? Could it be that there's more to it? In a short while, He arrived at the cloud peak and landed outside the cloud palace. When the guards at the gate saw him, they immediately bowed and welcomed him into the palace. Under the guidance of the guard, he passed through the courtyard and layers of palaces. He quickly walked into the depths of the palace and arrived outside a secret room. He pushed open the heavy stone door and stepped into the secret chamber. In the dimly lit secret room, there were 3 people present. One of them was a handsome young man in a golden dragon robe. It was Long Yunxiao, whom he had not seen for a long time. The other person was a middle-aged man in a black robe. He was a divine master from the monarch mansion and was good at healing. In addition, there was an ice jade bed in the corner of the secret chamber. An old man in a green robe lay on top of it. The old man's body was tall and straight, and he had a head full of gray hair. His chiseled face was filled with the marks of the vicissitudes of time. Ji Tianxing recognized him at a glance. This old man in a green robe was Emperor Yi. However, Emperor Yi lay motionless on the ice jade bed. His clothes were tattered and covered with dark red bloodstains. Even his white hair was dirty and messy with blood. He looked very miserable. His body was somewhat distorted, and his vitality was very weak. The power of his consciousness was also somewhat obscure. It was obvious that his consciousness had suffered heavy damage. The divine master in a black robe was in front of the ice jade bed, circulating his energy and casting a spell to check on Emperor Ye's injuries. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing's heart was in his mouth, and he was full of worry. Long Yunxiao heard the footsteps and immediately turned to look at the door. Seeing Ji Tianxing come, he hurriedly came up and said, "Tianxing, you're finally back. That's great." Ji Tianxing nodded at him and greeted, "Son of Heaven, thank you for your trouble." Long Yunxiao did not exchange pleasantries with him and hurriedly pulled him in front of the ice jade bed. "Tianxing, quickly come and take a look. Is this the Emperor Yi you're looking for?" Ji Tianxing sized up Emperor Yi, nodded, and said, "That's right, it's him." "Son of Heaven, what's going on here? Why is Emperor Yi here?" Long Yunxiao hurriedly explained, "Back then, when I received your message, I personally led people and rushed to the Mangu mountain range to pass on the news to Emperor Yi. Unexpectedly, when we arrived near the entrance of the boundless world, we discovered that a great battle had occurred there. We searched a radius of several hundred miles and could not find the barrier entrance, so we could only return without any results. This afternoon, I was busy dealing with government affairs when a guard suddenly came to report that there was an old man in a green robe outside the Forest of Divine Monuments and wanted to enter the monarch mansion to look for you. When I rushed to the Forest of Divine Monuments, I saw that he was being carried by a sky chief bird and had long been seriously injured and unconscious. I guessed that he might be Emperor Yi, so I brought him and the sky chief bird into the monarch mansion and settled them in Yunxiao Palace." After hearing Long Yunxiao's explanation, only then did Ji Tianxing come to a realization and said, "So that's how it is. Son of Heaven, I thank you for your life-saving grace on behalf of Emperor Yi." Long Yunxiao hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Between you and me, what's the use of the word thanks? Emperor Ye's injuries are too serious, and he's been unconscious all along. I'm powerless to do anything, so I invited Divine Master Lu to treat him. In addition, that Emperor Ye's sky chief bird also has soul refinement realm strength and can communicate with me. Just now, I already asked it, and only then did I know the whole story. 20 days ago, the fiend race powerhouses attacked the boundless world and beat Emperor Yi until he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Emperor Yi used all his strength and used a forbidden secret art to escape with his life, shaking off the fiend race's pursuit. The sky chief bird carried Emperor Yi away from the Mangu mountain range and escaped to Zhongzhou city after many hardships. He came to inform you. He was afraid that you didn't know about the fiend race's conspiracy, so he desperately rushed to the monarch mansion, wanting to remind you to be on guard." Ji Tianxing nodded to show that he understood, but his mood became increasingly heavy. Not long after, Divine Master Lu finished channeling and stopped casting the art. Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao both looked at him and asked with full concern, "Divine Master Lu, how are Emperor Ye's injuries?" Divine Master Lu's expression was very grave. He shook his head helplessly and said, "His injuries are really too serious." His physical body was almost destroyed, and all the meridians in his body were removed. His divine soul's injuries are even more serious. Not to mention that it's on the verge of shattering, it's also surrounded by powerful fiend qi, and the power of his divine soul is weakening day by day. With my skill and medical attainments, it's also very difficult to effectively treat him. Hearing up to here, Long Yunxiao was also full of worry and shouted with anger, "Damn fiend race, actually removing all the meridians in his body? What cruel methods!" Ji Tianxing's expression was also ice-cold, murderous intent boiling in his chest. Chapter 1359. Divine Master Lu, thank you for your trouble. Please go and rest. Leave this to me. Ji Tianxing thanked Divine Master Lu and gestured for him to leave. Divine Master Lu tactfully bowed and left the secret chamber. When Long Yunxiao saw that Ji Tianxing was going to treat Emperor Yi, he found an excuse, got up, and walked out of the secret chamber. Only Ji Tianxing and Emperor Yi were left in the secret chamber. It immediately quieted down. Ji Tianxing personally cast a spell. After checking Emperor Ye's injuries, he began to treat him. He first treated Emperor Ye's physical injuries. He used the majestic green with vital qi to repair the many wounds and damaged organs. Half a day later, Emperor Ye's physical injuries gradually stabilized. He then activated the power of the heaven-mending pearl to clear the demonic energy in Emperor Ye's mind and replenish his spiritual energy. After a whole day of treatment, Emperor Ye's injuries finally stabilized. His life force also returned to normal. He had passed the danger. Ji Tianxing put him into the sword world and settled him in a secret chamber in Untu City, allowing him to slowly heal himself. After a day and night of channeling, Ji Tianxing was a little haggard and exhausted. He sat in the secret chamber and meditated, silently recuperating his spiritual energy and recovering his spiritual energy. About 4 hours later, Long Yunxiao's voice suddenly came from outside the secret chamber. "Tianxing, the guards of the Imperial Monarch residence are here to see you." Ji Tianxing immediately ended his cultivation, got up, and walked out of the secret chamber. Outside the door of the secret chamber, 2 people were waiting for him. In addition to Long Yunxiao, there was also a middle-aged man in black armor with a dignified appearance. He was the captain of the Imperial Guard. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly as he looked at him and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" The captain of the Imperial Guard transmitted his voice to him and said, "Prince Tianxing, the palace master wants to see you. Please come with me." Ji Tianxing's body suddenly shook. He frowned and thought, "The palace master wants to see me? A year hasn't passed, and he has already returned to the palace master?" He vaguely guessed that the reason the manor head summoned him to the imperial palace was probably related to Yun Yao. Thus, he nodded expressionlessly and followed the guard out of the cloudy palace, flying towards the imperial palace. The 2 of them flew across the sky at lightning speed. A quarter of an hour later, they arrived at the depths of the monarch mansion, at the peak of the 10,000-meter-tall mountain. Shwa! The 2 of them descended from the sky and landed outside the ancient palace gates. When the guards on both sides of the gate saw Ji Tianxing arrive, they opened the gate of the palace. Ji Tianxing walked up the stone steps, stepped through the ancient and heavy bronze door, and entered the main hall. Boom! With a muffled bang, the heavy bronze door closed. He stood in the spacious hall and looked up at the throne in front of him. On that extremely noble and luxurious throne sat a burly man in a purple robe with a head full of white hair. On both sides of the throne, there was a dark golden statue of a dragonborn and a statue of a harpy. This was already the 3rd time Ji Tianxing had entered the imperial palace, but the scene in the hall had not changed at all. However, every time he entered the imperial palace and met the manor head in person, his feelings were different. With mixed feelings, he walked to the center of the hall and stood there. He bowed towards the manor head and said, "Greetings, manor head." The manor head had been resting with his eyes closed the entire time. Only when he heard his voice did he slowly open his eyes. Shwa! When he opened his eyes, a dazzling light flashed through them. His presence changed slightly as well, like a huge dragon that had awakened from its slumber. He looked down at Ji Tianxing calmly and said indifferently, "Have you completed the mission I gave you before I left?" Ji Tianxing nodded. "Mannerhead, I've successfully found a Neptunian divine pearl in the sun and moon furnace. I've completed the mission successfully." The Mannerhead raised an eyebrow and said with some interest, "So it really was hidden in the sun and moon furnace? It probably didn't go so smoothly, did it?" Ji Tianxing did not hide anything and answered honestly, "It really didn't go so smoothly. The sun and moon furnace is a god artifact of the world. It's extremely dangerous. I almost lost my life in order to obtain the Neptunian divine pearl." The Mannerhead nodded slightly and said in relief, "In terms of strength, you can't make it into the top 50 of the profound sky continent, but you're a person of miracles. Even soul transformation experts can't compare to you." "You praise me too much, Mannerhead," Ji Tianxing replied calmly. The Mannerhead no longer discussed this matter. He said sternly, "Do you know why I've summoned you here?" Ji Tianxing did not hide what he was thinking either. He answered honestly, "If I've guessed correctly, it should be related to Yun Yao, right?" The Mannerhead looked at him deeply and nodded, "That's right. You're very smart. The 1-year period that I set back then is almost up. It's about time for Yun Yao to leave." Ji Tianxing was already mentally prepared. Even if the Mannerhead revealed everything to him, he would not be surprised or angry. He stared at the Mannerhead and asked in a deep voice, "May I ask, Mannerhead, why must you take Yun Yao away?" The Mannerhead had already expected him to ask such a question. He said indifferently and sternly, "Because she has a reason to leave. Her life was given to her by me. More than 20 years ago, when I saved her, we made this agreement. You can see it as a deal between Cloud Spirit Palace and me. However, no matter what, Cloud Spirit Palace has to keep their promise." Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and asked again in a deep voice, "If I ask you now not to take Yun Yao away, will you agree?" He paused and added, "I'm willing to pay the corresponding price or conditions." The Mannerhead shook his head and said in an indisputable tone, "Yun Yao must leave. No matter what you do, this won't change. Right now, the situation on the continent is chaotic. The demon race's army is about to invade the south. The Demon King's scheme is about to succeed. The Central Plains will be plunged into misery and suffering. Yun Yao is the reincarnation of the ancient goddess of Nacre Light. She is the demon race's mortal enemy. Once the Demon King has enough power and trump cards, he will kill Yun Yao and do everything he can to kill her. In the ancient times, it was the goddess of Nacre Light who ended the demon race's glory and destroyed their plan to rule the world. Now that the demon race is finally powerful and prosperous, how can they repeat the same mistake?" The Mannerhead paused when he said this. He glanced at Ji Tianxing's expression before continuing. "Also, Yun Yao must constantly fuse with new Neptunian divine pearls to maintain her lifespan and soul. Otherwise, she will die. Even if she fuses with a second Neptunian divine pearl, her lifespan will only increase by 10 years. The other Neptunian divine pearls are not on the profound sky continent. If she wants to live, she must find more Neptunian divine pearls. If I don't take her away, she will definitely die. Have you thought about this?" Chapter 1360. Ji Tianxing had naturally considered the issues that the master had raised, and this was not the first time he had considered them. In fact, he had already mentally prepared himself for the day that he would leave the profound sky continent. Once the chaos of the demons was resolved, he would head to the Shenwu continent to pursue a higher realm of martial arts and unravel the mystery of Kenshin's death. The master wanted to take Yun Yao away. This was an agreement that the master had made with Cloud Soul Palace when he had saved Yun Yao more than 20 years ago. Furthermore, if Yun Yao did not leave the profound sky continent, she would definitely die. Logically speaking, he had no reason to stop the master from taking Yun Yao away. Furthermore, with his strength and status, he did not have the right to stop the master's decision. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only accept this reality. However, his heart was filled with worry. How could he agree to this so easily? He looked at the master with a burning gaze and asked, "May I ask, master, where are you taking Yun Yao?" The master had summoned him for an audience, and it seemed that he wanted to lay all his cards on the table. Thus, Lu Yin answered without hiding anything, "We are leaving the profound sky continent and heading to an even vaster continent. Only there can warriors break through the shackles of the primordial spirit realm and have the chance to reach the deity realm. Furthermore, only there can Yun Yao find the third and fourth Neptunian divine orb and extend her life." When he heard this answer, Ji Tianxing's heart skipped a beat, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. Could the continent that the master is talking about be the Shenwu continent? The master looked at him deeply and nodded slightly. "That's right, it's the Shenwu continent. It seems that you have already come into contact with the secrets of the Shenwu continent and know quite a bit?" Ji Tianxing shook his head. "I only know a little about the secrets of the Shenwu continent, so I don't know much about it. Since you were often not in the Sovereign King Manor and disappeared for many years, you must have gone to the Shenwu continent, right?" The master avoided answering this question, which could be considered a tacit admission. "In a month at most, I will take Yun Yao and leave for the Shenwu continent. I have already made arrangements there. After Yun Yao goes there, she will receive the best treatment and environment. She will definitely be able to display her dazzling brilliance. You don't have to worry about her safety. She will grow up at the fastest speed under the care of a big shot." Speaking up to this point, the palace master glanced at him playfully and said meaningfully, "You mustn't slack off. You must work harder in your cultivation so that you won't be left far behind by Yun Yao in the future. I'm afraid that it won't look good on you." After all, Yun Yao has inherited the inheritance of goddess Yaoguang. She was born extraordinary and will definitely recreate the glory of the goddess in the future. Hearing the mansion master's words, the last trace of worry in Ji Tianxing's heart finally dissipated. He silently thought to himself, "Fortunately, the manor head is taking Yao Yao to the Shenwu continent. Once the demon's chaos is resolved, I'll head there as well. We're only temporarily separated. Soon, I'll be able to go to the Shenwu continent to find her and reunite with her." As this thought flashed through his mind, he asked the mansion master, "Mansion master, who is this big shot that you're talking about? Why is he taking care of Yun Yao?" The mansion master immediately frowned and hesitated for a moment before answering, "That big shot is the strongest person who stands at the peak of all living beings. Even I can only look up to him. As for why he's taking care of Yun Yao, it's because Yun Yao is the reincarnation of goddess Yaoguang. He was also the one who personally appointed Yun Yao to be his subordinate." When he heard the mansion master's words, Ji Tianxing was somewhat moved, and his heart was filled with shock. The strongest person who stands at the peak of all living beings? Could it be a martial saint or a martial god? That powerhouse specifically wants to take Yao Yao as his subordinate because Yao Yao is the reincarnation of goddess Yaoguang. Does this mean that 20 years ago, when the mansion master took action to save Yao Yao, this matter was already set in stone? Was this the plan of the mansion master and that powerhouse? When he understood this point, Ji Tianxing suddenly understood, and he thought to himself with complicated feelings, "I never thought that this would be the truth. It seemed like a coincidence, but it was actually set in stone." Just as he was silently pondering this, the mansion master spoke again in a calm tone. "Tianxing, this matter has been decided. I have no intention of separating you and Yun Yao, but I have a heavy responsibility to take care of, and I'm also thinking about Yun Yao's life. The two of you will only be separated for a short period of time. Once the storm calms down, I'll think of a way to send you to the Shenwu continent as well. Of course, I can only do my best, but I can't guarantee anything. After all, I'm just following orders, and I don't have the authority to decide who to bring to the Shenwu continent." Ji Tianxing nodded and bowed. "Thank you, Lord Mansion Master, for your help. The Emperor is eternally grateful." As he spoke, he thought to himself, "I never thought that the Mansion Master, the #1 powerhouse in the Tianxian continent, would be willing to serve someone else and work for that big shot. Truly, there is always someone better than you out there. I wonder just how powerful that big shot is and what kind of status he possesses. The matter regarding Yun Yao ended there, and the two men no longer discussed it further. The mansion master continued, Tianxing, I can see that your strength has grown rapidly over the past half a year. You must have had an astonishing fortuitous encounter, right? Tianxing could see the concern in the mansion master's eyes, and it seemed as if the mansion master wanted to give him some pointers. Thus, Lu Yin gave a simple recount of his experiences and encounters over the past half a year. Of course, when it came to the Nine Heavens platform, he only talked about how he had attracted the divine lightning and how he had controlled it. When he had entered Xianpin Door and encountered Jiujiu, he did not mention a single word about it to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Even though the mansion master was very knowledgeable and experienced, he still could not help but reveal a look of surprise when he heard Lu Yin's story. In the end, when Lu Yin told him about how the hidden god sect and the Shao clan had been exterminated by the demons, the gratified look in the mansion master's eyes disappeared. The mansion master's expression became heavy, and a faint trace of hatred and killing intent flashed through his eyes. Damn demons! One day I will make them pay with their blood. The mansion master growled in a low voice, and a frightening murderous intent burst out from his body. Tianxing also felt the same, and he quickly said, Mansion master, we still need to think about how to deal with the demons. The most important thing right now is to treat Shao Wendian, sect master Shui, and Emperor Yi as soon as possible. Their injuries are too serious. The mansion master looked at him faintly and said in a low voice, They have had their divine bones removed, their divine blood drawn, and their meridians stripped. Their injuries are so serious, how can you save them? Tianxing nodded and said in a sincere tone, I really can't do anything, so I would like to ask the mansion master to help treat. Before he could finish, the mansion master waved his hand and interrupted him. Invite them out and let them stay in the imperial palace. I will personally treat their injuries. Chapter 1361. The mansion master's tone was complicated as he sighed emotionally. At that moment, Tianxing's body shook violently. His eyes widened as he looked at the mansion master in disbelief. The four of you? Reunite. He never thought that the mansion master would say such a thing. He understood the mansion master's meaning almost instantly. That was why he was so shocked and felt incredulous. Could it be that the mansion master is? As this thought flashed through his mind, he became agitated. His blood flow and heartbeat sped up. I see. I traveled all over the Tianxian continent and only found Kenshin's 3 in-name disciples, but I couldn't find Gu Daoxian. I didn't expect that the mansion master was Gu Daoxian, Kenshin's eldest disciple. No wonder Shui Ruoyu said that Gu Daoxian had disappeared for 1,000 years without any trace or news. No wonder the mansion master took good care of me after knowing that I was a descendant of Kenshin. Moreover, he knew everything about Kenshin. He personally told me about Guyi Xiao Shui and asked me to find Kenshin's followers. At that moment, Tianxing finally understood everything. All the doubts that had been lingering in his heart these few years were finally solved. After a long while, he came back to his senses and calmed down. At that moment, the mansion master nodded slightly at him and said calmly, Tianxing, follow me. With that, the mansion master got up and left the main hall. He led him through a secret door in the corner of the main hall and into the depths of the imperial palace. The two of them walked along the dark passage for thousands of feet before entering a spacious and dark secret room. When they stepped through the door of the secret room, Tianxing clearly felt that space and time were distorted. It was as if he had passed through an invisible bubble and entered another space. Without a doubt, the flow of time in this secret room was different from the outside world. 10 months ago, he had come to this secret room and cultivated in seclusion for a long time. The mansion master walked to the center of the secret room and waved his hand to shoot out a dazzling golden light into the wall. Suddenly, more than a dozen gemstone lamps lit up on the surrounding walls, emitting dazzling multicolored lights, illuminating the entire secret room. The black stone floor was engraved with mysterious and ancient patterns. It was the ancient divine array that could change the flow of time. The mansion lord waved his hand again, shooting out a dense ray of light. Immediately, 3 wide ice jade beds appeared in the secret room, lined up in a row on the ground. The manor lord turned to Ji Tianxing and said, "Tianxing, invite the 3 of them out." Ji Tianxing hurriedly opened the world in the sword and moved Shui Ruoyu, Xiao Wenyan, and Emperor Yi into the secret chamber. He placed them on 3 ice jade beds. The 3 of them were severely injured and had been unconscious the entire time. Among them, Xiao Wentian's injuries were the most serious. Renhuang Ye's injuries were second, and Shui Ruoyu's injuries were slightly lighter. The headmaster stared at the 3 people lying on the jade bed. He studied their appearances and sensed the aura of their souls. Reminiscence flashed across his eyes. 8,000 years passed by in the blink of an eye. The time the 4 of us spent together was very short, and we never gathered together to follow and serve the master. But we knew of each other's existence, and we all had the same beliefs and goals in our hearts. The mansion lord murmured in a complicated tone. There was a heavy sorrow in the depths of his eyes. Ever since Ji Tianxing met the mansion lord, he had always felt that the mansion lord was high and mighty, sacred and dignified. It was as if he had no emotions and was like a celestial being. However, at this moment, he realized that the mansion lord was not emotionless. It was just that he hid his emotions too deeply. If one was not close to him, it was impossible to have too much contact with him. Of course, one could not see the changes in his emotions. After a while, the mansion lord slowly raised his hands and used a secret technique to heal the injuries of Emperor Yi and the others. His hands formed a strange seal, and the secret technique he used was very mysterious and profound. Beams of brilliant golden light condensed into strange seals and entered the bodies of the 3 people. Ji Tianxing stood silently at the side, quietly watching the mansion lord cast the spell. However, he realized that he could not understand the trajectory of the mansion lord's spell. Shui Ruoyu has just reached the first level of the primordial soul realm, so there are still traces of her using the secret technique. However, the mansion lord's method of casting the spell is completely baffling to me. His strength is also as powerful as the deep sea, unfathomable. It seems that the mansion lord is not only in primordial soul realm powerhouse, but he has most likely reached the peak of the primordial soul realm. This thought appeared in Ji Tianxing's mind, and he was full of confidence in the mansion lord. He believed that with the mansion lord's powerful strength and methods, he would definitely be able to heal Emperor Yi and the others. Unknowingly, 5 days passed. The mansion lord continuously used the secret technique and persisted for 5 days and 5 nights without stopping. He used hundreds of thousands of seals one after another to heal the injuries of Emperor Yi and the others, using up a huge amount of his power. However, his expression remained calm, without the slightest hint of exhaustion. He had a calm and composed demeanor. It was as if his magic power was inexhaustible, and would never be exhausted. Finally, when the mansion lord cast the 990,000 seal, he slowly stopped and ended the spell casting. He put his hands behind his back and looked at Emperor Yi and the others with a calm expression, waiting silently. Emperor Yi and the others were wrapped in a layer of hazy golden light. Their physical and spiritual injuries were rapidly recovering, and their life auras were becoming more and more majestic. In particular, Xiao Wentian's change was the greatest. His body had originally turned into a dried corpse, but now it was producing new blood. His skin, flesh, and blood were rapidly recovering. Ji Tianxing witnessed the changes in the 3 with his own eyes. He was secretly looking forward to it, and he was also shocked by the mansion lord's powerful methods. Very quickly, another 6 hours passed. The golden light that enveloped Shui Ruoyu gradually dissipated. She was the first to wake up, and she slowly opened her eyes. This place? Where am I? She looked around in a daze, sizing up the situation in the secret chamber. She used her arms to support her body and slowly sat up on the frost jade bed. She turned her head and saw Ji Tianxing and the mansion lord beside the bed. When she saw the faces of the 2 people clearly, She was immediately shocked, and her eyes were filled with shock. Little junior brother? And eldest? Eldest senior brother? Eldest senior brother. Is it really you? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? After 1,000 years, I can actually still see you? Why are you two together? Shui Ruoyu was very emotional. She stared at the mansion lord in disbelief, as if she was in a dream. The mansion lord looked at her with a smile and said in a gentle tone, "Little junior sister, how have you been?" Hearing the mansion lord's words, Shui Ruoyu could no longer control the excitement and emotions in her heart. Her eyes were suddenly covered with a layer of mist, and sparkling tears poured out. Eldest senior brother, it really is you. She held the edge of the bed with trembling hands and immediately wanted to get off the bed. Chapter 1362. After 1,000 years, Shui Ruoyu and Gu Daoxian were finally reunited. Both of them were filled with emotions. There were too many things in their hearts that they wanted to tell each other. Ji Tianxing stood to the side, silently listening to the two of them reminiscing about the past and talking about their past. After about 2 hours, Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenyan woke up one after another. Their reactions were almost the same as Shui Ruyu's. When they saw the mansion master, they were shocked and in disbelief. They were stunned for a long time before they reacted. They emotionally called out, "Eldest senior brother," and were about to get off the bed to bow to the mansion master. Although they had lived for more than 1,000 years and were grandmaster-level powerhouses, they were all white-haired and senile. In their hearts, other than their master, their biggest support was their eldest senior brother, Gu Daoxian. After all, Gu Daoxian was the first in-name disciple of Kenshin. He was also the most outstanding martial arts genius among the four of them. Back then, Gu Daoxian had taken good care of them and was the backbone of the three of them. He was just like the old saying, "An elder brother is like a father." After 1,000 years, the four in-name disciples of Kenshin were finally reunited here. Of course, there was also Ji Tianxing, the successor of Kenshin. The 5 of them were all disciples of Kenshin. They had an unbreakable bond and relationship with each other. Everyone was very excited and gratified. They chatted for a long time, but there was still something to talk about. In the course of the conversation, Ji Tianxing spoke less and listened more. Thus, he gained a deeper understanding of the events from 1,000 years ago. Unknowingly, a night had passed. It was not until the next morning that everyone stopped chatting and began to talk about serious matters. The mansion master looked at Ji Tianxing and asked in a low voice, "Tianxing, you said before that the demon emperor sent the demon clan's powerhouses and the blood god to attack your 3 junior brothers and junior sisters and steal their divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons. It could be a shocking conspiracy?" Ji Tianxing nodded and said in a low voice, "That's right. 10 months ago, I talked to you about this in person. The demon emperor was carrying out a secret plan to resurrect the ancestor demon god. Only with the rebirth of the ancestor devil god could the devil clan truly regain their glory. They could once again take over the world and dominate the entire Tianxian continent. I'm almost certain that the reason why the devil emperor sent experts to steal the divine items of my 3 senior martial brothers and sisters is related to this plan." Shui Ruoyu also nodded in agreement and said, "Eldest senior brother, you should be very clear that the divine objects that Master gave us are all unique treasures on this continent and are comparable to divine artifacts. Once the Devil Emperor obtains our divine item, he will be able to cast a spell to create a fleshly body comparable to a divine artifact. Since Tianxing mentioned the matter of reviving the ancestral devil god, I boldly guessed that the ancestral devil god had not perished in the antiquity age and was able to survive until now. Only a shred of his soul was left. If the ancestral fiend god was reborn, without a corporeal body, his strength would be greatly reduced. However, if the devil emperor were to forge a divine body for it, it would be completely awakened and reborn. Its strength would be terrifyingly powerful. At that time, all the experts in the world would not be able to resist it. Even if we were to join forces, we would not be a match for the ancestral fiend god." Emperor Yi and Xiao Wenin had also heard from Ji Tianxing that the Devil Emperor wanted to revive the ancestral fiend god. Therefore, after listening to Ji Tianxing and Xue Ruoyu's analysis, the two of them nodded in agreement and revealed worried expressions. That damned ancient Devil Emperor. He is so sinister and despicable. He actually concocted such a shocking scheme. How despicable! The Devil Emperor has already obtained our divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons. It's enough for him to forge a preliminary divine body. If the Devil Emperor obtains eldest senior brother's deity heart, he will be able to form a complete divine body. Then his scheme will succeed. Xue Ruoyu nodded solemnly. She looked at the palace master and said, "Eldest senior brother, although the Devil Emperor has obtained our 3 divine items, he cannot forge a complete divine body. The final key lies in the deity heart in your body. Only with your deity heart can a true divine body be formed. Therefore, you must protect yourself no matter what. You must be careful. You must not let the Devil Emperor succeed." Ji Tianxing also reminded, now that the situation is very critical, the Devil Emperor will definitely use the divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons to form a divine body for the ancestral fiend god. Soon, the Devil race's army will invade the Central Plains. A storm of blood will descend. However, we still have a glimmer of hope. As long as we unite and think of a way to stop the Devil race's attack, we still have a chance to turn the situation around. However, if Palace Master's deity heart is also snatched away, the ancestral fiend god will be able to obtain a complete divine body and recover his strength quickly. When that time comes, the profound sky continent will definitely be plunged into misery and suffering. Every race in the world will be powerless to resist and can only be slaughtered and enslaved by the Devil race. At this point, the atmosphere in the secret chamber became particularly solemn. Everyone's mood was very gloomy. The palace master's gaze swept across everyone and said with a determined expression, "Everyone, don't worry. With the Devil Emperor's current strength, it's impossible for him to snatch away my deity heart. Moreover, I will do my best to stop the Devil race's schemes. I will not let the Central Plains fall and the Devil race dominate the world." When everyone heard the palace master's words, their hearts calmed down. Ji Tianxing took the opportunity to ask, "Palace Master, what plans do you have for the next step?" The palace master said with a solemn expression, "I will immediately give the order for all the princes in the imperial residence to return to their respective races and forces to resist the Devil race's invasion. In addition, I will also send a few god-tier masters to the various battlefields to assist the various races in resisting the Devil race's attack." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "That's good. I don't expect the god-tier masters and the princes to be able to stop the Devil race's attack. I just hope that they can buy some time." The palace master looked at him with a deep gaze and said in a low voice, "These are all delaying tactics. They can't solve the fundamental problem. There is also another very important matter that is extremely urgent and needs to be completed as soon as possible." Ji Tianxing frowned in confusion and asked, "What is it, Palace Master?" The Palace Master said in a serious tone, "Tianxing, you are Master's successor and also the Devil Emperor's nemesis. If the situation of the continent is desperate, I'm afraid you will be needed to turn the tide and expel the Devil race. The 3 junior brothers and junior sisters are already seriously injured and weak. They won't be able to participate in the war for the next 10 years. I will also leave the Central Plains to complete that mission. Therefore, you are the hope of all of us." Ji Tianxing immediately felt the heavy pressure and said with some difficulty, "Palace Master, you think too highly of me. I want to kill the Devil Emperor and eradicate the Devil race in the world, returning the continent to its former glory. But with my current strength, I can't create a miracle, let alone turn the tide." The palace master looked at him with a determined gaze and nodded, "No, Tianxing, you can do it." Chapter 1363. Logically speaking, the prefecture lord was the strongest person in the Tianxian continent. In the face of the demon race's invasion and the continent's imminent collapse, The prefecture lord should have stepped forward and turned the tide. However, Ji Tianxing was very clear that the prefecture lord was not shirking his responsibility. Although he was the strongest person in the Tianxian continent, he was not a free person. He was also a subordinate of that mysterious person and worked for that person. A year was almost up, and the prefecture lord had to bring Yun Yao out of the Tianxian continent and rush to the Shenwu continent. This was the agreement between the prefecture lord and Cloud Soul Palace, and it was also the plan of that person. It was the prefecture lord's mission and mission. If he did not comply and angered that person who stood at the pinnacle of all life, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, at this critical juncture, the demon race's army was marching south, and the human race's defensive line was being pushed back. The central region was in imminent danger. Ji Tianxing could only sigh inwardly. Fate truly made fools of people, and fate was full of misfortune. The demon race's attack was simply too fast. When the prefecture lord saw that Lu Yin was silent, he did not say anything else and gave him time to consider and make a choice. Emperor Yi, Xiao Wenian, and Xue Ruoyu had already made their preparations and plans. The three of them looked at Ji Tianxing with concern and took turns to persuade him. Xue Ruoyu looked at him kindly and said earnestly, "Tianxing, there are only 5 of us here today, so let's not talk about saving the world or saving the common people. You are not a saint, and neither are we. No one is born with the mission of saving the human race. You can think about it carefully and answer after you've thought it through. No one has the right to force you. However, there is one thing you must know. Killing the ancient devil emperor and eradicating the demon race is also Master's wish." After Xue Ruoyu finished speaking, Emperor Yi said calmly, "Tianxing, we all know your nature. It is impossible for you to stay out of this and completely ignore this matter. You cannot watch the demon race invade the central region and wantonly slaughter our people without doing anything. We are almost crippled and we cannot help you anymore. The only thing we can do is to impart to you the secret arts that we have learned in our lifetime so that you can grow as quickly as possible. As for whether you can kill the Devil Emperor in the future and end this war, no one knows. We can only do our best and leave the rest to fate. This way, even if I die in battle, I will have a clear conscience." Xiao Wenian was silent for a while before he finally said, "According to our estimation, the Devil Emperor has already recovered to the primordial spirit realm. Apart from that, there were also a few essence soul realm supremacies among the large number of blood gods he created. There was also an ancestral demon god with a half-step divine body who was about to be reborn. These were the strongest experts of the demon race. With your talent and combatability, you will have a chance to kill the Nephilim Emperor and the Blood God and save the continent once you break through to the primordial spirit realm. Tianxing, you have to believe in the lifetime of the 4 of us. It will definitely increase your strength greatly." After he finished speaking, the mansion master finally spoke. He said to Ji Tianxing, "Tianxing, the 4 of us are proficient in different secret arts, but they were all imparted to us by our master. If the 4 of us impart our secret arts to you, you will have 20% of our master's strength when you reach the primordial spirit realm. Moreover, when you cultivate our master's sword Dao in the future, it will be twice the result with half the effort. It will be greatly beneficial. Think about it carefully. If you agree, we will start imparting as soon as possible. You will cultivate in seclusion in this secret chamber. I will use all the resources in the Monarch Mansion to maintain the operation of the formation in the secret chamber so that you can cultivate in seclusion here for about 2 years. When you come out of seclusion, only a little more than a month will have passed in the outside world. There should be enough time." The mansion master, Emperor Yi, and the other 3 had nothing more to say. After they finished speaking, they looked at Ji Tianxing with burning eyes, waiting for him to make a decision. Ji Tianxing's expression had been very calm. His eyes swept across the faces of the 4 people and suddenly revealed a trace of a smile. "Actually, I understand all the reasons you have said. Even if you didn't persuade me, I already had an answer in my heart. A long time ago, I swore that I would kill the demon emperor and eradicate the demon clan in the northern desert. The pain that the demon clan once inflicted on my family and friends, I will return it 10-fold, no, 100-fold. Thank you, senior brothers and senior sisters, for trusting me unconditionally and placing such high hopes in me. I agree. If it's convenient, let's start imparting as soon as possible. Seeing that Ji Tianxing had finally agreed, the mansion master, Emperor Yi, and the others breathed a sigh of relief and revealed gratified expressions. Tianxing, we are proud of you. We are all Master's disciples and successors. Regardless of life or death, we will never bring shame to Master's name. After a while, everyone calmed down and began to impart their skills. Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged on the icy jade bed. He circulated his skills and adjusted his breathing for a moment, reaching a state of cultivation where his mind was clear. Xue Ruoyu took the lead and sat opposite Ji Tianxing. She waved her hands and performed a secret technique, forming a mysterious seal. She activated her majestic spiritual energy and condensed the 3 secret techniques that she had cultivated in her life into a ball of dazzling white light. Then, she slowly pushed out her palms and pressed the ball of dazzling spiritual energy on Ji Tianxing's forehead. Swoosh! The egg-sized ball of spiritual energy slowly entered Ji Tianxing's forehead and gradually entered his mind. After a full hour, the ball of white light stabilized and floated in his mind, temporarily accepted by him. After Xue Ruoyu finished imparting her skills, she looked as if she had been seriously ill. Her breathing was very weak, her face was pale, and her body was drenched in sweat. She stopped with difficulty and walked down the icy jade bed. She staggered to the corner of the secret room and circulated her skills to adjust her breathing. Then, Xiao Wenyan took another step forward and sat down in front of Ji Tianxing. He also held his breath and concentrated on channeling his skills. He condensed the 2 secret techniques that he had studied in his life into a ball of spiritual energy and transferred it into Ji Tianxing's mind. His injuries were more serious, so the process of imparting his skills was very difficult and slow. It took a lot of time. After a full hour, he finally finished imparting his skills and slowly stopped. He was so tired that he almost collapsed on the ground. He had almost exhausted all his strength. With the help of the palace master, he walked to the corner of the secret room and circulated his skills to adjust his breathing. The third person to impart his skills to Ji Tianxing was naturally Emperor Yi. He also spent more than 2 hours to impart the 2 secret techniques that he had studied in his life to Ji Tianxing. At this point, there were already 3 balls of spiritual energy floating in Ji Tianxing's mind. With his current strength, cultivation level, and the strength of his spiritual energy, this was already the limit. If the palace master imparted his skills to him again, his mind and spiritual energy might not be able to withstand too much power. Accidents and dangers might occur. When the palace master discovered this situation, he let Ji Tianxing refine and absorb the 3 secret techniques first. After a while, he would impart his secret techniques to Ji Tianxing. In order not to disturb Ji Tianxing's cultivation, he quietly left the secret room with Emperor Yi, Xiao Wenyan, and Xue Ruoyu. Chapter 1364. Although the mansion master had already treated Emperor Yi and the other 2's injuries, the 3 of them were no longer in critical condition. The 3 of them were fine now, and they could still use their arts to teach Ji Tianxing their ultimate techniques. However, their injuries were too severe, and it was impossible for them to recover in a short period of time. At the very least, they would need to recuperate for many years before they could recover a certain amount of combat power. It was basically impossible for them to recover to their peak strength. After all, their divine bones, divine blood, and divine tendons had been removed. They had already lost their most precious divine items. In the future, even if they recovered from their injuries, their strength would be greatly reduced. Even their martial arts aptitude would be greatly reduced. It would be very difficult for them to break through the shackles of martial arts and reach a higher realm. It was precisely because of this that they imparted their most powerful ultimate techniques to Ji Tianxing and did their best to help him. The secret chamber was dark and silent. Only Ji Tianxing was alone. He sat cross-legged on the ice jade bed and was concentrating on cultivating. There were too many treasures stored in his mind. It was enough to make any soul refinement cultivator go crazy with jealousy. In the middle was his divine soul golden sword. Above it was the blazing white heaven mending pearl. Below it was the quaint Big Dipper god fire cauldron. 7 dazzling white divine soul magic swords were suspended in a circle around him. In addition, there were 3 blazing white balls of divine soul light that floated quietly around him. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and decided to go from easy to difficult. He would first refine Xiao Wenyan and Emperor Ye's divine soul light. Lastly, he would refine Shui Ruoyu's divine soul light. After all, Shui Ruoyu was the strongest among the 3 of them. She had already broken through to the primordial soul realm. He would first refine Xiao Wentian's divine soul light. When he released his divine soul power and came into contact with that ball of divine soul light, he immediately felt a majestic and mighty aura. There was also an endless amount of information pouring in like a torrential flood, pouring into his divine soul. Among the complex and profound information, there were 2 ultimate techniques recorded. Both of them were top-notch and powerful secret techniques. Although there were only 2 secret techniques, they were both passed down from Kenshin. Naturally, they had been tempered thousands of times and were incomparably perfect techniques. Ji Tianxing focused his mind and abandoned all distracting thoughts. He focused on refining the ball of white light and receiving the information within. After 5 whole days, he finally finished absorbing all the information in the ball of light and roughly understood the 2 absolute arts that Xiao Wenyan had imparted to him. The first move was the star-shattering fist. Without a doubt, this was a powerful and unfathomable offensive spell. This fist technique had already surpassed the category of martial skills. It could be called a divine skill. It could draw upon the power of heaven and earth and release an incomparably terrifying power. If one cultivated it to the extreme and reached an incomparably profound level, one punch could shatter the stars in outer space. Ji Tianxing repeatedly studied the star-breaking fist's incantation, comprehending its profound meaning and essence. Gradually, he grasped the knack of it. As his understanding of the star-shattering fist deepened, he became more and more shocked and expectant. As expected of the ultimate technique taught by Kenshin. The concept of the fist technique, the way it works, the way it exerts force, the way it attacks, the way it changes, and so on are all refreshing. Not only is Kenshin the god of the sword, but his understanding and attainment of the fist technique is also absolutely superb. With Xiao Wentian's strength, if he uses the star-shattering fist with all his strength, he can only shatter 200 miles of mountains and rivers. Only when one reaches Kenshin's level can he shatter the stars in outer space with a single punch. Just as this thought flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind, the ball of white light twisted a few times and condensed into a white figure. This small figure was condensed from Xiao Wentian's spiritual consciousness. Its appearance was exactly the same as his. He was in Ji Tianxing's mind and looked at the spiritual golden sword with a smile on his face. He said, "Tianxing, don't underestimate this star-shattering fist. This is one of my most powerful ultimate techniques. Since Master imparted this star-shattering fist to me 1,000 years ago, I have studied it for 1,000 years. Unfortunately, I have not reached the primordial spirit realm and can only use 20% of the star-shattering fist's power. In the future, when you pass the heavenly tribulation and reach the martial sage or martial god realm, when you use the star-shattering fist again, you will definitely be able to shatter the stars with a single punch." Ji Tianxing knew that this Xiao Wenyan was just a spiritual consciousness shadow. The reason why he could communicate with his spiritual consciousness was to help him quickly comprehend the ultimate technique. He quickly replied, "Senior brother Xiao, don't worry. I will definitely focus on comprehending this ultimate technique and bring it to greater heights." Xiao Wenyan nodded his head in satisfaction and said with a smile, "In that case, I will pass on the essence and tricks of the star-shattering fist to you. Listen carefully." After that, he truthfully told Ji Tianxing the key tricks and essence of the star-shattering fist. At the same time, he also told Xiao Wenyan about his experience and understanding of the star-shattering fist in full detail. Originally, Ji Tianxing would have needed to spend a few years to explore and comprehend all these. Now that Xiao Wenyan had directly imparted it to him, he could quickly comprehend and master it. A month later, he had completely mastered the star-shattering fist skill and essence. He had also memorized it in his spiritual consciousness and would never forget it. Next, he started to comprehend the second ultimate technique. The second ultimate technique that Xiao Wenyan imparted to him was called Ask the Heavens with a Horizontal Sword. This was an unfathomable sword technique that Kenshin had imparted to Xiao Wenyan. Xiao Wenyan had been cultivating this sword technique for thousands of years and had cultivated it to an extremely high level. All along, Xiao Wenyan had treated this sword technique as his trump card. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would definitely not use it. Previously, when the Demon Clan experts had sneaked into the Xiao clan and besieged him at the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains, he had used this sword technique to kill 2 Demon Clan experts and force the Blood God, who had attacked him, to retreat. The remaining power of the sword technique had shattered the entire Pillar of Heaven's Mountains and turned it into ruins for a few hundred miles. Taking advantage of that opportunity, he had taken out the ancient black metal piece and entered the Dharma treasure space. He had only managed to escape by hiding a few dozen miles deep underground. Ji Tianxing spent a few days memorizing the skill of Ask the Heavens with a Horizontal Sword. He had reached a level where he could recite it backwards. Then, under the explanation and teaching of the White Dwarf, he gradually comprehended the essence of this sword technique and used a month to master it. 2 months later, he had refined Xiao Wentian's spiritual light and truly mastered the 2 ultimate techniques, the star-shattering fist and Ask the Heavens with a Horizontal Sword. He did not stop cultivating and continued to refine Renhuang Ye's spiritual light. The 2 ultimate techniques that Renhuang Yi had imparted to him were also imparted by Kenshin. Moreover, Renhuang Yi had added in his experience and comprehension of 1,000 years of cultivation. The first ultimate technique was called the Heaven-Capturing Palm. The effect and power of this secret technique could be seen from its name. As long as Ji Tianxing had mastered the Heaven-Capturing Palm, he would be able to unleash a powerful capturing technique that could easily deal with powerful enemies and capture objects from a distance. Moreover, the Heaven-Capturing Palm also contained thousands of changes and magical uses. It had incredible effects. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.